But we say it's not metal netta based on the single fact that metal netta has been tampered and altered and controlled by the Caucasian.
By the way, understand that I didn't even bring slides and he's already upset. I just made these sitting in the back of the room. When I have a chance to bring slides, you're going to have to call 911 for this brother, because as good as his blood pressure is, he going to lose it.
Now, me, I deal with black organizations. From my perspective, it seems that Brother Jabari is dealing with all knowledge. I do not. I adhere to our scholars, I study their scholars, and I
not ready for me.
utilize right knowledge, right wisdom, and right understanding to come to logical conclusions.
Family, just listen to what he said and think about it yourself. You know that what he's saying doesn't make sense.
Being the fact that knowledge is free, open, and infinite, the same things that you learn in the Caucasian's university, which is 0.5 plus 0.5 equaling 1, making unity only halves coming together as one. That's numerology 101. Being at that fact, I don't utilize, I refuse to utilize the Caucasian as my reference. Now, if it's funny, then fine.
That was not the Kemetic language. And that's the problem that I have with a group of people who do not focus on the Kemetic language.
Please don't let Brother Jabari's fast words.
He's not ready for me.
He's a great speaker too. He knows at just what point, and I might even take speech lessons from him.
He's not ready for me. And he shouldn't be ready for me. He's 25. He shouldn't be ready for me. I respect what he is able to do, but don't call me out and try to have a debate. If you do that, I'm not gonna go easy on you because you're younger.
This entire region in pre-dynastic and proto-dynastic, I ain't talking about Norma. Norma is the first of the dynastic period. I'm talking about pre-dynastic periods. The exact amount of time that he's been studying is barely over my actual age, and I've been studying my entire life, being the fact that I was born Nuwuapian. And Sinetta even had to remind Brother Jabari this off
He's
camera.
not ready for me.
Remember Jabari, he was born. Sinetta, you said that, right?
Yes, I did.
Remember, he was born. So the studies I've been studying. Now, Brother Jabari is attempting to debunk.
See, the reason he doesn't know history enough to actually give the best sources. Let me help him here.
Once again, you do not speak any language. I said straight to Jabari, face to face.
Why didn't he ask me about the Kustal site? I'ma actually help him with his debate.
I spoke to him in fluent Amharic. I spoke to him in.
He's not ready for me.
I gave many of terms, and I had to baby the terms down. So I know that you heard me.
He even has the nerve to say that he tried to discourse with me in the Medu Netter. Family, I don't know what he was speaking.
And that's your style of teaching. And you have to really stop insulting my style and just be comfortable with us being who we are.
In Nubia, why would you be a fool? The Kustal site is earlier than dynastic Kemet. That's what you should ask me about.
He thinks I'm a fool.
Why would you be a fool?
He would even put together in his mind.
And you've already called me out for a debate in March. As long as I'm in the country, I will be there. I don't know if you know what you're asking for, but...
No, being the fact that I can't, because being the fact that university information is accessible.
Brother, that's like me comparing my house to your house, but I've never been in your house.
You been in Nuwuapian?
I've certainly been a lot closer to Nuwuapian information than you've been to the university, brother.
That's not true at all.
Come on. Come on. So where did you study?
What?
Where did you study? So tell us which university you studied in.
Knowledge is free and open and infinite. So being the fact, I will. Being the fact that knowledge is free, open, and infinite, the same things that you learn in the Caucasian's university, which is 0.5 plus 0.5 equaling 1, making unity only halves coming together as one. That's numerology 101. Being at that fact, I don't utilize, I refuse to utilize the Caucasian as my reference. Now, if it's funny, then fine. But all I'm saying is take down, not you, I'm talking to anybody else. All I'm saying is take down the red, black, and green and the big fist in the air if you're going to adhere to them as fact first. All I said is utilize sound right reasoning and look with your eyes for yourself. And then say, okay, I'm going to go, because university information is accessible.
You do see that as what he was talking about. Do you see it as
he's making, first of all, let me say this.
And where's that from?
Why did Prince York just assume, no, don't look up here, look here.
But there's no mouse on this one.
Yes, yeah.
I don't see it.
University. Why did Prince York assume that the university meant that you were dealing with the European? I have an Africana Studies degree. My chief scholars were Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, James Turner. So I don't know why he just assumed right away that he said he knew more than university and then said that that means you have to be beholden to the European. I was taking the European to task at the university because I was getting information from our greatest scholars who were at my university, Cornell University. But what I'm saying to dear Prince, and I want him to hear this clearly, is you cannot make a comparison between the university and what you learn in the community unless you've been in both settings. And I'm going to tell you that I teach in the hood. You see where we are, family. We across the street from the projects. This is who I am. But you better understand that I have done with the best. I have fenced with the best individuals in the university setting. But don't think that just because I have 2 degrees from Europeans, 2 degrees from university means I got them from Europeans. You got to be clear that that's not what that means. That's not what that means. And so what I think that sometimes, family, what we do is we give the European too much credit. We give them too much credit. Why would you think when I say university that means European? Was it not the African that built the greatest universities of Europe?
Bring it out.
So why would you make that assumption? We have to stop doing that. We have to stop thinking that science is there, so we're not going to do science. We're going to do our own stuff. We have to assume that when they come out with their studies, we have to ignore everything because the European came forward with it. What you have to do is you have to analyze their data, because if the data is properly gathered, it has no color. It has no nationality. You can analyze their data and come with different arguments, family. We can't just discard everything that European sources come out with. What you do is you analyze it, you tear it apart, and figure out whether what they're saying is correct or not. By the way, I'm going to also tell you something else. There were a number of European scholars that were analyzing their information truthfully that came to a very clear understanding. A very clear understanding of the fact that Africans gave civilization to the world. If you're confused about that, read the works of C.F. Volney. Read his massive work. If you want to understand where civilization comes from, even when you read Budge, you hear him begin to say that European scholars, if you read what he calls the Osiris Resurrection, Volume 1, he says that European scholars will not understand Kemet because they don't study the rest of Africa. That's what he says. So when you look at what the European says, you can't assume that everything that they say is incorrect. Now, I'm not saying that I believe everything they say is correct. That would be crazy, because we know that many Europeans despise us. We know that they are seeking to, in some instances, and this is the truth, family, become us.
Jabari, where is that from?
Now, I want to be clear that what you're seeing is you're seeing a Bobo mask. It comes mostly from Mali. And of course, Prince York is saying, look at this mask and then look at the Heru Behudet. And he's saying, are there not similarities? Family, you are in the Shrine of Ma'at. I wouldn't have put them there if I didn't think there were similarities. But does that mean that their languages have similarities? Not necessarily. Let's not make overly simplistic arguments. If we are scholars, we have to put our information to the task. That's what you must do. Simply because some of their ideas are the same doesn't mean their languages are the same. Simply because their languages are the same doesn't mean their ideas are the same. You better understand that. Let's be really... No, I got this here, brother. I have not been to Mali yet. Hopefully I will have... Family, you're going to know when I go to Mali, because you know I'm going to have lots of footage, and I may even get our dear brother Sadnetta to get over his problem with planes and start traveling with a brother. Because when Sadnetta gets to Kemet and goes through those sources, you're not going to even recognize him anymore, because this brother is primed for this information. He has been learning this information and distributing it to our people longer than most of you have been alive. So you better understand, if he goes and he sees it, I'm going to have to tell him, Sa, it's time to go to sleep. Nah, I can't. I'm getting information on my people. He's going to be bouncing and flying. So you got to push him too, family. Push our brother Sadnetta, because I know that this is the information that he wants. He's been in this information longer than most of the people that I take to Kemet. He knows more information than a lot of people I take to Kemet. So you imagine what he would do with it. So don't let him get away. Push him when you see him on the chat room. Push him, say, Sadnetta, when you going to Kemet? Because he's going to love it. He knows he is. If I have to knock him out like B.A. Baracus on the plane, we'll do that. put some Percocet in his milk, right? You know what I mean? Put something in his milk. But he has to travel.
Do that though.
Listen, you get used to the travel, but I'm going to tell you, I still don't like the long flights. And Prince York is saying he sleeps. Most of us sleep when we go, because you know what I do? I'm usually so busy before I travel. I'm so tired by the time I get on the plane that I say, man, I'm so excited to get to Kemet. And I'm out cold. And I sleep I usually sleep in about 2 to 3 hour clips, right? So I don't sleep the whole time. I wake up, maybe I watch a movie and laugh a little bit. I read a little bit. I prepare my lectures. I go back to sleep. I eat some food. I go back to sleep. And when he comes with us, he's going to be with family. So that's another aspect of it, right? He's going to be with people who are interested, people who are looking out for you, so you'll be able to be comfortable doing it. I know that's how I feel when I travel with my queen, because she's sitting right next to me. If I'm sleeping, I could do whatever I want. My head could be dancing around, and she's going to make sure I'm okay. When you go with family, it's also another element of it, because you know that you could truly be relaxed, even though you're not necessarily in the most relaxing setting, because there are people that have your back. So that's what we got to do. We're going to do it. Issue. You're going to be fine. Listen, I have, yes and no. Yes and no. Because the reality is when you get to Kemet, it's 7 hours ahead in terms of the time frame.
Like you're going through
You're past the shade, yeah.
The thing that's bizarre is that we usually leave at around, around 6? And we get there at like 11 o'clock in the morning.
So it's like
so the thing that's hard sometimes is that you get on the plane when it's light and you get off the plane and it's light, and you've been traveling for 10 hours. And we usually take it easy on you the first day.
Like when you go through the dark, it's like going through a shade.
Well, here's the deal. You know why you don't see that? He's saying, do you go through the dark? Yes, you do. But here's the deal. After you eat, when you get on the plane, first thing they do is they feed you. Really, maybe like a half hour, 45 minutes, and you're eating. After that, you could get drinks if you want, yeah. After that, what do? They close the shades. So I don't see when we travel through dark, because they close the shades because they're like, look, you need to sleep. And so you sleep. You're not going to deal with the fact that the sun is there. You know, you get used to it. I'm making 2 trips to Kemet this year. I'm going to be in Kemet. Family, you can come with me if you like this year. I'm going to be back in Kemet from November 22nd to December 5th with that master Kemetic yoga master, Yasir Rahotep. So if you want to come, you can still get a seat and come with me. It's going to be an amazing trip. And if you're into Kemetic yoga, or you're into other forms of yoga and you want to learn Kemetic yoga, there's going to be a 200-hour teacher training that you can partake in. So you can not only get the internal sciences, but you're also going to get the intellectual sciences. It's going to be powerful. So, listen, this is something that you can do. Family, you need every African that should travel. Because you will get fundamentally aware. You'll become reconnected to what you're capable of. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to go too.
Well, I wanted you to hear what he said, because I'm responding to what he said.
That's
But now I want you to understand that I truly believe that we need to get to the point where we have our scholars that have as much information, as much access to resources, as much access to primary sites as the Tomhu has. You will not hear me use the word Caucasian, because I don't know if you know this. Yeah, he knows that. He knows that. It's one of the Kemetic words. It's not your word. It's not my word. It's a Kemetic word.
How you say it?
It's actually pronounced Ta-ma. And he just says Ta. It's Ta-mahu. And it's a reason why, because we can break down each syllable. The same thing that you could
say Tamahu, or you could say Tamu.
Okay, what is Tamu?
When I say
I gotta go there. I don't want to go there, but he gonna make me have to go there. What is? Because you have to, same way you do in English.
You have to understand. Wait. We're not gonna disagree on the consonants. We're disagreeing on the vowels, because the Kemetic language does not transcribe many of its vowels. Okay. It had to have vowels because you can't speak without vowels, but it didn't transcribe many of the vowels. So I'm not going to argue with you about Tamahu. I'm not going to argue about Tomhu, because the reality is we're putting an A in there in order to say it. I just think that it's not necessary to put the A, so I don't do it.
Then you wouldn't be able to say it.
So that's why, no.
Say Tamahu.
I'm talking about the second A.
Oh, the second.
So some people
That's
say,
necessary
listen to me,
because
hold
top-
on, wait.
Ta by itself
Some
means
people
land.
say,
So it becomes a different word. That's what I'm trying. He's not a linguist. He don't get that.
of course ta means land.
Exactly. So when you don't add the if I don't spell the word right in its proper format, it becomes a different word. Like when you deal with Maya.
Prince.
If you deal with the
Prince.
word Maya or Muyo, you're talking about water.
Prince.
If you put it,
Prince.
hold on, if you're missing a vowel.
Wait, you're going on and you're not hearing.
missing
Wait.
a vowel,
Before
I'm
you
not
go on,
finished.
no,
If you're
because
missing a vowel,
if you
it's
go
a
on,
different word,
we're
so
not
doesn't
we're
mean
not
the same.
disagreeing. You're arguing something we don't disagree. That's why you have to hear. I didn't say I didn't put the first A in. I said the second A. So yes, I did say ta. We agree.
Yes, the second
The
A
part is tama. Who? Some people say tamahu. Some people
What does the
say
word mean?
some people say tahu. It means the people from the north is what it means. It's not a derogatory term. It's not a derogatory term. It just describes where they came from. This is the first name for the European. You're not going to hear me use Caucasian, as you did, because Caucasian designates them as the original people. You need to get my book.
How?
You do.
Give me a brief.
Well, just understand that in my book, and now I'm not going to have a copy of it right here,
1,500 books.
but understand, but you should get my book. Not because I'm saying, but listen, not because I'm trying to be insulting and say I'm schooling you. It's just information. So you'll get the information and you'll agree or disagree, right? So, but the reason why I'm saying to you that you should get it is because there's a really good discourse on the Africans being the original people. I know you know that, but the challenge is the language that we use doesn't allow us to understand that the Tamhu has placed this concept in our language. So Caucasian was developed by a man named what? Understand that I don't want to go too far into this because this is going to take a long time. Understand that a German physicist decided that he had dozens of skulls in his home and he had one that he thought was the most beautiful, right?
Yes.
And as he saw that skull, he said, this proves that those people from Europe are the original people and all other people devolved from them. So that is why we will call these people the Caucasian, because the skull was of a woman from the base of a mountain. It's in the country that we now know as Georgia. It wasn't Georgia then, but as a country we now know as Georgia. And so what he said was, this means that we should call, listen to what I'm saying. This means that we should call, I have two others, I'll get them downstairs. That we should call the European the Caucasian because they are the prime people. The reality is that the European does not come from that area. The European is from Africa just like everybody else. They've just been off in a distant land a little bit further. They've been in a land a little bit further, and their phenotype changed. And because they did not have access to the elders of the world, and they were fighting each other for resources, their ideology changed drastically. It changed drastically.
How do you say this?
We even, if you look at the actual archaeological record, you'll actually see, if you look at the archaeological record, you have to listen. I thought you were talking about discipline.
I am talking about this.
But you have to listen.
I've heard
Because
this.
if you're going to disagree with me, you have to hear my argument.
I've heard it. You've been saying it the whole time. You've been repeating.
I have never said this today.
Yes, you have.
I have never said this
You told me that
today.
you do not refer to the Caucasian.
I did. I just said that today. But I'm explaining to you why. I didn't explain to you why before.
You have.
I didn't explain to you why
have my
before.
attention, but I'll tell you.
Okay.
This. You have my attention.
You could disagree.
You have my attention, but you're losing my patience when you start saying hypocrisy.
I really thought that in your school you learned discipline
We
and
do.
patience.
We do.
And you challenged me.
But
You
I'm
said,
not an
you
master.
said,
You proclaim
you
yourself as a
said,
teacher. I'm not a
you
student.
said,
I'm
you
a
said.
That's a difference.
If you were really a student, you'd be listening right now. We should all be teachers and students.
Supreme.
We should all be teachers and students. I am a student in many instances. I'm a teacher.
Let's give him his ISO.
I have been. This is immature. That's immature. That's immature. This is immature. I am telling you a story. This is immature. Prince York, just listen. You could disagree, but you have to listen.
I'm listening, but I'm
Okay.
giving you ISO.
Okay.
Because you want to build, so I'm going to let you go.
So anyway, family, you saw this family. I mean, listen. Now he wants to say that the white man is God. we have to understand that even when you do genetic studies, you'll actually see that all people on the planet come from one source. All people on the planet actually come from one African woman. One African woman. Because those Europeans that began to describe this reality were beholden to the Abrahamic traditions, Prince York doesn't realize it, but so is he. But honestly, because they're beholden to the Abrahamic traditions, they called her the mitochondrial Eve. I would never call her that because Eve is not in my sacred text. So, but understand that everyone on the planet comes from Africa. They were away from us for distant periods of time, and because they were away from us, their phenotype changed, the way they look changed, and honestly, in some instances, their cultural mores, their cultural understanding, and even their ability to have right relationships between people changed as well, because they were away from the cradle of civilization. If you take a child away from its mother early, and they don't have access to the knowledge of elders, they'll likely go the wrong way. So what we need to do is recognize that we are the elders of civilization. And we have to come into knowledge of self, not just for the African, not just because the African's catching hell, but I know some of you aren't ready to hear this. But listen to me for a second. We have to come into knowledge of ourselves because we have to save all of humanity, not just Africans. Because the youngest people on the world are actually destroying the entire earth. We have a Korean ruler and a false ruler. I can't even call him president. I'm going to call him, you walked away, so now I have the screen. If you want to come back, I'll integrate you. So if you actually look at the false ruler, who I call 45, I'm not going to call him president. If you see the false ruler here, and this Korean man arguing over the world, they could actually destroy all of humanity with their arguments. The elder has to reassert themselves with the most sacred knowledge. And as we do that, then we will put the world in its right place.
All right, Brother Prince, I want to ask you, being that you are so in disagreement with Jabari as far as where the white race come from and who are they, I'm asking you, my brother, come on over here.
I want my ISO.
Where do they come from?
The ISO?
What is that?
That means I get to solo explain something without his interruptions. The way he just did.
I interrupt you. You asked me a question, I answered it.
Can I get an ISO? Am I allowed to do that? I'm just asking.
He just want to ask without you interrupting.
This is really immature.
Can I just want to ISO.
This is really immature.
Why am I not allowed to get ISO?
He came here for a dialogue. And you know what, family? He came here for a dialogue. And let's be really clear. We were having a dialogue. He walked away because he disrespected me. But I won't allow him to disrespect me because my chief purpose is to assist you, family at home. That's why I'm here. So I allowed him to be disrespectful because I said he'll come into knowledge of self. He's still a young man. He's gonna get it together. And I will allow him to do that because when I was his age, I might have done the same thing. But now as a man of nearly 46, I recognize that even when I disagree with someone, I have to hear their ideas. And so he didn't even listen. He wanted to just walk away and say, I'm gonna let you have ISO. I wasn't trying. I had no idea what he was talking about. I wasn't trying to talk to you at home, family. I was trying to talk to him, but he walked away. So now he's upset with me because I won't let him talk by himself. This was supposed to be a discussion. What is going on? It was supposed to be a discussion. So I have no problem with him sharing ideas. I asked him to come here so I could hear his ideas. And family, he said this in the beginning, and I didn't get a chance to agree. 85% of all that we say is I agree with. There's a lot that he said upstairs. He thought he was disagreeing with me, and I was trying to tell him, I agree with you. There's a lot that we agree on. And I knew that, because just as he's watched my videos, I've watched his. I wanted to talk to him about things that I did not understand, and I also wanted to give his movement credit for some of what it's done. Because I know, as someone who is building a spiritual community, I look at several spiritual communities and I say, these are some things that these communities have done well. I only hope I'm able to emulate some of those things. I can't take away from his father or from the people in his movement that they built an autonomous society down in Georgia. Why would I want to take that away? I give his father honor for doing that. And if he was here, I would give him honor for doing that. And I give his son honor for the work that his father did. I wasn't here to tear him down. But there's some things we're going to disagree on, and we'll talk about those things we disagree on, and even talk about things we agree on. So I'm hoping that he will re-engage so we can have a conversation. I'm going to give him the mic, and I'm going to let him say what he has to say. Why would I not do that? I asked him here for a conversation. I didn't ask him here. I could have asked Sa to come over so I could talk to you at home alone, family. He would have done that. That's not what I wanted to do. I want to have a conversation with this young brother because he has a lot of great information. And I'm going to tell you that if I was his age, I might not have had as much information as he did. I respect that he has done a lot of study and a lot of work, and that he's an articulate brother. I respect that about him. So I'm going to give him the microphone and allow him to share his ideas, because I want to hear his ideas. And with the conversation we had about being students and teachers, I'm both a teacher and a student. I'm not just a teacher. There are no masters of this knowledge. In order to be a master of Kemetic knowledge, you had to study in the temple for at least 42 years. So I'm not saying that I'm the master. I never said I was a master. I said I'm a high priest. But being a high priest doesn't mean I'm a master. It means I have a greater responsibility to those people that are with me. That's what it means. So please, could you please reintegrate and have this conversation? Thank you.
A lot of things was misconstrued based on the fact that he's on the camera by himself. So, you know, we create.
I didn't want to be on the camera by myself.
Great. We create, different things. He's allowed to be on the platform, etc. But that's great. It's great. It's gravy. I don't want anything to be misconstrued by the people. People get a misunderstanding based on how we as Nuwuapians carry ourselves. Being the fact that everybody in the community has come out of the Nuwuapian nation.
I'm gonna cut this off. I'm
not trying to disrespect you.
Where do you think the white man come from?
Well, I'm definitely gonna get that side, but first I have to address the first topics. What I'm gonna do is at this point of the video, because things are getting what I would term as out of discipline, out of self-discipline, and me myself, I do admit myself as a student of the Supreme Grand Master Teacher, and being a student, I understand that my personal responsibility and faults, and I would hate to misrepresent. So when I begin to lose my patience, I'll exit that part of the conversation. As far as the language and the different translations, everything I said is still fact. It still remains fact. He's agreed on me with 50% on it and disagree. I don't have a problem agreeing to disagree. He studies Kemet. I study pre and proto-dynastic Egypt. That means I deal more so with ancient Nubia, pre-dynastic Nubia, etc., and those dark-skinned, woolly-haired people. I do not include the Caucasian in my science whatsoever. In my science, I say, and this is what it is. You know what I mean? It is because I'm basing off of science as well. Once again, the Caucasian has dictated all of the world's knowledge. The Caucasian is not the same as us, does not come from our descent whatsoever. The Caucasian doesn't even really have skin to a certain extent. And it's not even out of race or race hate. It's out of genetic studies. If you study his genealogy, we come from two different original blood types, where the Caucasian comes from the Rh negative by nature. And if you study the correlation and the mixing of those blood types, if you insert Rh negative blood type into an O positive, you would literally go into a freaking what they call it, not a heart attack, a cardiac arrest from the chemical reaction of the mix. We have something known as melanin that's found in the epidermis layer of us. Epidermis. That's why I wanted him over there, so I could just speak.
Oh, he's just correcting.
But he's not. But who is he to do that? Allow me to speak and speak in my accent and the way I say things and be me.
I apologize.
It has to be a level of individuality. His style of teaching versus mine.
Go ahead. Not that you haven't done that to me as well.
Exactly.
So then how are you now so upset that I'm doing it?
I'm not upset at all. Please don't misconstrue it. I'm not upset. I'm simply asking for an ISO. Okay. That's all I've asked for. I'm asking for isolation, whereas I can build to the people, so therefore your thoughts and ideology doesn't overpower mine, and the people get a confusion of what I'm talking about based on your misconception of what I'm saying. So I asked you to give me an ISO with a presentation, so therefore I can show and prove what I have to say.
You said in the very beginning of this that you were upset that I was dictating questions to you, and that you should be able to have questions.
See how we're still I'm not able to.
And so what you've done now is you decided that I would be alone on camera. I didn't decide that.
Yeah.
And so now you're demanding that you should be on camera by yourself. Bro. These are all this is your understanding. This is not the way that this conversation was supposed to occur. He said, I'm giving you an ISO. I didn't ask for an ISO. Now he's like, why won't you give me an ISO? First of all, I didn't even know what the heck an ISO was. And second of all, I have no problem with giving him his time. But let's be clear. Let's be absolutely clear. Let's be absolutely clear. If you look at the video, family, you will see that I allowed Brother York to speak. Prince York. I'm not trying to disrespect you. If you want me to call you Prince York, I say that.
Don't ever call me by my last name. That is the most disrespectful to me.
Well, I'm not aware of that. So if you tell me what you want me to call you, your last name is your name as well.
No, you call people, bro. Come on now, son.
So what do you want me to call you? What do you want me to call? I'm not trying to disrespect you. What I'm asking him what he wants to be called. I have no problem with what.
You know what this is, bro? Wait, what this is? What is it? This is what we came down here for, was so I could get isolation.
Presentation
We didn't say isolation. We never said anything about. You just said that.
So if I'm able to present something, you're gonna interrupt me while I'm presenting it? I'm trying to present it to you so you can get the full scope, and then I can shut up and sit down, and then you can go and say, "Now let me tell y'all, family, blah 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 blah." And to me, that would be the most organized.
Well, listen.
Rather than you cutting you off, let me. And the people miss the point. You're not able to talk right now.
Let me say this. Brother York and I have agreed on a format. It was supposed to be a dialogue. I came down here. Upstairs. We said it was going to be a dialogue. Watch the video, family. This is not. Just watch the video. He's asking you to ignore your lying eyes and ignore your ears. We agreed on the beginning.
Over the picture. Don't look at the walls, family.
No.
Go by with the university, and I got this degree.
That's not. I never said that.
Let me make this
said that.
Let me make this known to all the people in the public.
Take the microphone.
Let me make this known to all the people in the public. And I'm gonna say this one time and excuse
Why don't you do your presentation real quick?
He can't do his presentation.
I can. I definitely can. And Sinetta can zoom in on the laptop, and I can do a presentation.
Listen, come on, let's do it.
Like that. The way you say certain words is like that to me, being the fact I deal with proper pronunciation.
But there's a difference between netter and
Prince
Egyptian.
kill me, man.
It's like to
There's
me.
a different, and I don't always say netter. I say that in public.
To me, it's like saying tomato.
Is what I actually
You say what?
in my prayer.
Well, you drop what?
I say unter is what I say in my prayer.
Where'd you get the pop from?
Prayer, because the earliest people in that
How you
region
do that?
use that.
Do that again, Jabari.
Unter is what I say.
Hold on. Do that again.
Now I'm never going to say that on camera.
That is what I do.
1, 2.
When I'm talking to people, I use the word netter,
and that would be an argument.
and I
because
have no problem using netter.
Our people, most of them, when you deal with like back of the throat pops and air pops, etc., most of that stuff comes from West Africa, from my studies. I have not seen many of it.
So how do you explain the Xhosa people and Xhosa people doing it in Southern Africa?
I'm saying, when I'm telling, I didn't, you see, I'm talking
Not
about?
familiar with them?
No, I haven't finished. I'm saying, when I say West Africa, I'm just generalizing. I'm saying West, meaning away from Egypt. From what I've studied in the Nile Valley, from the indigenous people who is of my lineage, I haven't seen.
Yo, do you want to go through that right quick, man?
No, I want to go ahead and do this presentation, get it over with.
And then you're going to listen to his response?
I mean, sure, but he's going to make his response, the masters of heaven and earth.
Go ahead, bro.
Are you close enough? Let me make sure you're close enough first. Nuwuapians deal with pre-dynastic Egypt, including all of its original lands by any names, whether it be Kush, Aswanu, whether you're dealing with Ethiopia, which is a Greek name, yes, I'm just using the term, or Nuba, Nubia, etc., and many other places, right? We mainly focus our attention on that connects us as Nuwuapians in the history. We focus on, one of the main cities we focus on is Napata or Napata. And Napata has been expressed in the Medu Neter hieroglyph as NPT. Being the fact that there is no vowels, it creates an interchangeable sequence. So Napata can also be written as Napata, Nuputu, Nepeti, Nipati, or Napoto. Also can be seen in other words such as Heru, Horu, Haru, and Hiru. Anubu, Anaba, Anabi, Anabi, and Anubu can all be similar, dealing based on the interchangeable sequence of language. Other letters that are interchangeable are B and a P, the M and the N, the BRL, the CGGH, the K and the G, the SH, the PF, the KH, the AEIO, and U. The reason why this interchangeable process happens in the language is because we're translating first and foremost, we're translating one language that has a larger amount of letters, consonants and vowels, well, no vowels, but a larger amount of consonants mainly, and we're forcing it into a language that has only 26. And in that compilation, we're going to have a double up on words. So if you see in my diagram here, I'm going to expand it for the purpose of the conversation. If you see in my diagram here of the Medu Neter, you're able to see where it says Y, it has or. Where it says E, it has or. Where it has C, it says or. And this is just one diagram. And the reason why why you're able to see those ors is because there's more letters, but they don't include them. They just say this word or this letter has more than one sound. The way they teach you in English, that's the same. That's English science or English literary sciences forced upon you here in America. So where you say A makes the sound of A or A makes the sound of ah, instead of saying that in pre-Semitic language, what you would do is you would say you have a hard A, which is usually, if you was to write it in English, would be an A with a dot above it, and then you would say you have a softer A. So the hard A would be A, and the softer A would be ah, and those would be two different vowels. When you shove them together, it creates an interchangeable sequence because now different dialects are now able to pronounce it in numerous of ways based on their own dialect of their language. So language is something great to study, and I recommend it for all of our young and old scientists out there who's interested in the science of linguistics. Let's go further. Here you have another civilization that Nuwuapians hold to as one of our civilizations where our direct people came out of. This civilization is called in Arabic Nakada or Nukada, and it's another pre-dynastic city, and it's actually not far from the ancient city of Napata. Nakada in Arabic terms as critics or judges. The Meduneta Harafat is a Nuwuapic word for letters. The Meduneta Harafat translation is NBW or NWB, which creates a noob kind of sound. Once again, applying the same interchangeable sequence of the vowels, noob, NWB, becomes Nuwuapu, or commonly known as Nuwaba or Nuwuapu. Other culture, our culture, which is our culture and our spiritual way of life. So Nuwabu or Nuwubu is our cultural way of life, and also is termed as the name of us. So say the word Nuwuapian in our language would be Nuwabu or Nuwuapu. When you add the U at the end, it makes a plural. It adds like a plural, almost like Hebrew, where Hebrew is I'm, which is Y-I-M. Also dealing with English may add an S to make something more than one, whereas in our language it would be a U. Now, these people were known to modern historians as Nubo-Egyptians, Nubans, Nuba, or the Noba people. In pre-dynastic history, they are said to be nomadic people, but in fact, they were great migrators. Greek historians termed them that way because of their lack of understanding of pre-proto-dynastic history. Yet, these people are also Napa or Naba, meaning people out of Napata and the Nakata regions of the Nile Valley. Nuwuapians, these are our ancestors. As you now see, we Nuwuapians always are ahead in information because our Nabab master has been able to study and travel Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Morocco, Israel, Ghana, Egypt, etc. He has sat, as you can see in the pictures here, he has sat with many elders from many different walks of life, right? He has sat with many elders on his travels, not just tours for tourists and quote unquote what they want you to know or what you're allowed to see. Because remember, Egypt is the republic, the Arabian Republic. It is controlled by Arabs, is dictated by Arabs who we say is not the pre-dynastic Egyptians. We say we are the Africans, the African Americans. We are those original Egyptians or Kemetic people. Now, moving forward. But amongst the indigenous tribes is where he studied and speak with their elders. And their shamans. He was even inducted in many of their tribes and have his tribal scars. My father's chest looks like it's been covered in tattoos based on tribal scars and tribal marking of his induction and initiation into these different tribes. And the indigenous tribes of the region actually allowed the master teacher, Nuwuapian, to be a translator from them conversing with one another. Let's go further. The original dialects of Arabic, Syriac, Ashuric, and Aramic, allowing him to ask the necessary questions from mouth to ear to elders. They passed this knowledge on because of their anger with the Arabs that had conquered their lands and built an Aswan dam in 1964, a few years later. A few years later, therefore flooding numerous of ancient Egyptian or ancient Kemetic sites, including the great temple of Abu Simbel. And from then on began changing Egyptian appearances on the wall. And as you can see on the picture, you see Caucasians in the temples actually altering the color of the skin of the people and the Egyptians on the wall, meaning this university style information that we're getting is being altered as we're studying it. And these people, if y'all want a reference for this photo, these people are actually coming from the University of Chicago, and this picture was taken in the early 90s, and they're actually altering, I wish the picture was in color so you could see it, they're actually altering the skin complexion of the Egyptians. They're shaving off the red and the dark brown and the black, and they're replacing it with white and peach. And this is why I say let's not base all our knowledge on what the Caucasian says, because the white man has shown us, not he's the devil in a spiritual aspect and kill him. I'm saying he's shown us his attributes. He does not have a place in history. He does not have a history of his own. His beginning starts in the Caucasus Mountains in northern Europe, in Scandinavia, where it was 3 different tribes, and those 3 tribes mixed together and became 6 different kingdoms. The 3 tribes were the Celtics, and the Danes, and when they mixed together, those 6 kingdoms came together, and 6 in Roman numerals is VI. That's how it's expressed. 6 kings becomes VI kings, and the VI kings is their first real culture, which was the Vikings, barbaric. Thus, the word Neanderthal is birthed from the word Netherlands, and all this is taking place in northern Scandinavia at the same geographic location as the Caucasus Mountains. They're all in the same region. These are their origins. Caucasians are not of African descent. They are of an entire different, more than ethnicity, but we even say in some cases a different species. And whereas their exact creation in some cases are unknown, many facts are proven that they did not migrate from any parts of Africa, that they were already there. And you can study this as far as the science of melanin, the science of their blood and their DNA, even their body structure. Caucasians are normally...
That's the last slide.
No, we're almost there. Caucasians are normally built more taller than most Africans, with very large calf muscles, sharp jawlines. You have to study the features of different people, and very slim noses, etc. Different color eyes. If anyone is to tell you that an African with a big nose, big lips, big brown eyes, and in some cases, when you go to Africa, even the real Africans, the whiter their eyes have actually gotten darker because of the amount of melanin. Their nails is darker because of the amount of melanin.
So let me ask you a question.
Let me just finish this point. So if you're going to tell me that someone moved into a colder climate and their nose shrunk, their lips shrunk, their eyes shrunk, their skin began to discoloration, then you would be more in favor of the biblical story of the disease of lepers. But I'm going to allow Sinetta to ask me his question.
First, because of that last statement you just were saying, let's say you had your arm in a cast, right? The cast is on your arm for a period of, let's say, 8 months to a year. When you take that cast off your arm, how would your arm be looking?
Your physical arm, yes, would have changed, and in some cases, it might even have shrunk. People who have broken...
How would it look? Go ahead.
I'm building. People who have broken their legs, when their legs are broken and they
begin to get lighter as well, right? Because it's not being in the sun. Yes, go ahead.
I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Let me tell you. You will notice that your arm will become very hairy. Your arm will also be sweating a lot because it's like in a cave, so to speak, right? And it gets lighter. The same thing that happened with the European, because he lived in a cave. He began to be sweaty, hair grows all over his body, he gets lighter. So if that's not the case, and if the white man didn't come out of Africa, you are saying that it was like 2 creations. First, there was a creation of the black man and woman, and then later on, there was another creation somewhere, where? In Europe, and where? Talk to me about that.
I would dealing with the Caucasian. I would say that.
How did they get here?
I'm not gonna necessarily go, because that'll probably be a whole nother video.
It's all right. Just tell me how did they get here, brother, in short, layman's terms.
But what I would say this: the Caucasians are definitely not Africans at all,
right?
As well as, and I'm not saying there's 2 creations, because one, we as Nuwuapians don't necessarily deal with an official creation, because we're not dealing with the religious aspects that come with it. What we would say is we deal with a term of existence, of time period, of people, and I guess some people would term that as evolution, but we're not saying in the same way that they do. We're more so saying that Africans have always existed across the planet. Humanoids have always existed across the planet, and during times of plate tectonics and polar shifting, etc., through different regions, we all migrated into the greatest landmass, the safest landmass on the planet Earth, which is, as we term, is Tamaray, or the entire continent of Africa today. Many people are going to argue and say, "Oh, Afrikaners, I'm just giving you the term, so therefore everybody who can understand." I'm not.
What I'm asking you is,
But I'm not
saying that the white man was created was somewhere else.
I'm saying the white. I'm saying that teaching is a Caucasian teaching that's taught to us.
So
but I'm telling you,
where you come from.
I'm telling you based on the science of blood types, melanin, physical features. If you put your arm in a cast and the cast is in there long, your arm will become frailer. Your skin, the skin complexion would lighten. It would not, and it would gain a coat of ash, but it would not change. When you deal with the Caucasian, they are melanin recessive. That means their body does not accept melanin. If they were Africans who were light-skinned Africans, then they would tan, and when they tan, they would not catch skin cancer. Their skin would not begin to wrinkle. They would not begin to get boils that we don't get. We live in Africa forever, and the people there look younger than forever.
That you have not answered my question.
I agree with Sinetta and the people that I've not answered Sinetta's question yet, because I am saving that question for a later date, because it's going to turn into a circus when I build on that. It will, I promise. But we want to get back to the slide. Another thing I want to mention real quick is that if you want more information on the stuff I'm talking about, or you want information on the Caucasian, you can order the book, the Bigfoot book. Call the number 201-878-2833 and get that at 428 Ocean Avenue, the Cultural Resource Center. You follow what I'm saying? But we're going to get back to the slide. So here, the next thing that we have is, from this, he discovered a mystery language. That he we're talking about is our master teacher, and maybe someone that you study commonly, known as Dr. Malachi Z.K. York. He discovered a mystery language in Nubia, other than just hieratics. This one language and its scripts can be found in many dialects all over Africa, such as Sabaean script dialects, Ge'ez dialects, Sub-Saharan dialects, Neo-Saharan dialects, Ethiopian script dialects. Marrying the dialects, their origin was reborn, and the language of time known in this day and time, we term it as Nuwuapian. Family, the Nuwuapic language, yes, has been updated and has been modernized to apply to us in this day and time, which I'm sure the brother Jabari would agree that modernization of our culture is key. We cannot walk around the streets of New York City in a toga. We will get hit with indecent exposure. You follow what I'm saying? So we have to modernize certain things in the way that we dress, etc. So it's not us taking ownership of it and saying it is ours and no one else's. It's us simply saying we want to live this way of life, and this is how we choose to do it and identify ourselves on the planet Earth. Because we as Africans, we're suffering from an identity crisis. We do not know who we are. Most Africans are becoming Muslim, and were becoming Muslim simply for the sake of culture, not even for the sake of the religion. They became Muslims because they wanted to be a part of the culture and have what they felt was the African way of dress. They were even taught in some cases that Allah was the black God and that was our God. And from that, science attracted us. It wasn't necessarily religion. We weren't naturally brought into religion. And another thing, people have to stop saying that the Egyptians were civilized. The Egyptians were not civilized. When you say the word civilized, you're admitting that at some point you were uncivil. The Egyptians or the Kemetics are the civilizers. We taught everyone else civil. We taught everyone else how to behave. We taught everyone else hygiene because we have high genes or high genetics. It's in our genetic code. We are the teachers of the planet Earth. We've always have been. And at some point in time, us as being gods, our goodness and our kindness has been taken for weakness, and we have now been conquered. And now we're living in a conquered society, and now we have to depend on our slave master to reinform us on who we are, and he's given it to us in bits and pieces. Thus, here we are over 400 years later, still in the United States of America, and still in some forms of mental bondage, and some of us in physical and spiritual bondage. So we have to learn to free ourselves. I'm going to go further. If you look at the diagram here, you're able to see the Nuwuapic harafat, which is letters, the Nuwuapic script. And if I translate this sentence for you, it says pa. This is a P. P-A-A. Pa, which means the. And this is ha. H-A. Ha-ra. This is a R. Fat. This is a harafat. Harafat means letters. So this sentence says the letters.
And that's the Nuwuapian language.
That's the Nuwuapic. And if you look at the book he had, you'll see that the symbols are different because the printers was changing the stuff in his books and misguiding people. Like people said Dr. York had no references. I have a whole build on that for you because there's codes all in the back giving you references to all the books, but they removed it so we would be able to turn on our own leaders. It's divide and conquer. This is why I call the white man a devil, not because he's a devil incarnated. I'm calling him the devil because of devilishment acts. One who acts that way is what I'm gonna call you. If your child is being naughty, then you're gonna call them you're gonna say they misbehave. You know what I mean? And that's not a racist thing. It's just a fact. You're misbehaving. You need to act right. You follow what I'm saying? So now finding our origin, we regained our culture. We Nuwuapians are not talking about it anymore. We are living each and every day, and we prove our existence in our ways. In other ways, we prove our existence in ways others are still dreaming about. Our own language, clothing, music, ceremonies, rituals, dances, symbols, entertainment, holidays, calendars, history, country, nationality. We have our own identity. No longer will we as African people walk around on the planet Earth with no identity or be what they call wannabes. And what is a wannabe? Wannabes is when we're studying all this different stuff and it's because we truly want to be. And it's not the fact that we're not. The world is looking at us as wannabes. And they're looking at us as wannabes. When you're a Muslim, the Arabs are going to look down on you and say, oh, he's not a... You know what I mean? When you're a Christian, everybody's always looking down at Africans no matter what we try to do, even to the point where West Africans look down at a lot of Africans here in North America. And they look down at us because they feel that they're the real Africans and we're like dark white people. So what Nuwuapu did for us, and what I can personally attest to, is it gave us a sense of identity. It gave us a culture to live in. So therefore, when I transition and I die off this planet Earth, I won't be buried in a cemetery. I won't do any of their rituals or practice. When I'm married, I don't have to go to a church or a courthouse, which is another church, and you can get that breakdown on my YouTube channel, the Prince York channel. But I'm not going to go to the courthouse, which is another church, another religious thing, and built with masonry, you know, from the gravel that the judge actually hits. That's all masonry. So I'm not going to go to another religious center to be more indoctrinated in it. Everything they say to you is a level of indoctrination. Have a blessed day. That's a form of indoctrination. Language has spells in it. The spell is in the spelling. And that's why we can't get lost in the trance of translation. We have to bridge the gap. So I'm going to go further and we're almost finished. It's our last page because it's the last major topic that people ask about. People are asking us about the Unktwi. You see that symbol right there? That is the Unktwi. The Unktwi is our own symbol to represent our second resurrection, our reawakening from the mental and physical slavery that we've lived in America. It is symbolic to our opening today. It, in comparison to the Unktwi symbolizes, in comparison to the Ankh symbolizes physical life and unity of procreation, whereas the second Z added to the Ankh, creating the Unktwi, represents spiritual life. So each bar represents the physical life's connection to the spiritual lives. It was created for and by Nuwuapians as a part of our own identity in this day and time. So please, and there's a lot of Nuwuapian teachers and that are new teachers, and they don't have all of the information. So please stop running with what you've heard from them. They're students and they're still learning, so be patient with their misunderstandings. We've never said that the Unktwi, the double Ankh that we wear, is an ancient or pre-dynastic symbol. We gladly will tell you it is our own symbol. We created it. What gave you the permission to create it? The same thing that gave me the permission to breathe. My bloodline genetics, my birthright as a pre-dynastic Egyptian, as a shit. If I go further than that, my birthright as an earthling gave me the right to create whatever I want. Every single symbol that we accept and every single language that we accept are all created. So therefore, we also have the power to be procreators as well in this day and time. And we wanted a symbol. We still acknowledge the Ankh and hold to it dearly and acknowledge everything it stands for. We simply utilize the Unktwi as our symbol as individualism. So we can individualize ourselves and say, look, we are a part of the entire ancient Egyptian and ancient Kemetic society and communities, but we are the Nuwuapians. And this dual Ankh represents us waking up from sleep and waking up into some form of spirituality. This is the very, very end. Go ahead, Si. Now to deal with the known pre-dynastic pharaohs. This is how we look at things. One of the last of the pre-dynastic empire, you were dealing with a pharaoh by the name of Ka. I'm sure the brother Jabari, with his great understanding of the Medu Neter, will agree that Ka means
spirit.
Thank you. Great. Spirit. So we both can agree on that. Whereas in the Medu Neter translation, they only pronounce it with one A. But in actuality, it's a hard A and a soft A. It's supposed to be a cha. It's supposed to come from the back of the throat. Cha. Proper pronunciation is important if you say that you are one who does prayers, rituals, and deal with the deep, in-depth spiritual sciences. Because if you do, then you want to be saying everything in tone. Tone, sound, and vibration is what affects people. If you say, good morning, now the other person is going to feel you annoyed with them, and now they're going to say it back in that manner. Whereas if you're the bright person that says good morning, now you've made someone who may have been feeling bad feel differently, all because of the sound vibration. So that shows you the science of speaking properly. So we have to, that's why we as Nuwuapians study the language, so we can say everything in its proper grammatic form. Both Medu Neter and Nuwuapic we adhere to. So the pharaoh by the name of Ka is one of the last pre-dynastic pharaohs. Ka means spirit. In Egypt, you were named based on who you were, not what you accept. So we identify him as a spiritual being based on the title Ka. Now, the next pharaoh that was, now this, most of this is assumed to be because the lack of knowledge that the Caucasian has on the different pre-dynastic Egypt. Pre-dynastic Egypt kind of remains a mystery, and in most cases, most archaeologists and those who study the science will either debunk the theory and say however many dynasties that they choose and leave it there, starting with Pharaoh Menes or Narmer. But in actuality, there is a pre-dynastic period. There are pyramids in Nubia, Sudan, that are older than the pyramids in Kemet, and we can disagree. We can agree to disagree, and all we have to do is do the facts for ourselves. So, learn the carbon date, and then you can prove me wrong. Other than that, then we got to refer back to the white man, the same man who enslaved us. So that makes no sense. The next pharaoh is known as Iri-Har, also known as Ro. Now, remember, family, we have to break down the language. I has been termed as M, E-M, M or Am. Re is really Re. Re is R-Y as they pronounce it, and it's really Re because they're interchangeable of vowels, so we have to put it in its proper stance. So I-Re is M-Re, and then Hor, H-O-R, is truly Har, H-A-R. So I-Re-Hor is actually M-Re-Har. And you can hear the difference in the exact tone. And they forgot to put the Akhet at the end of his name, and I'll explain why in a second. Imre-Har Akhet is the one who is said to be reincarnated in 2012's precession change to bring forth the age of Aquarius. Re means sun, Har means on high, and Akhet means horizon, Hor rising, or Har rising. So he was supposed to bring forth the coming of the age of Aquarius, because in pre-dynastic periods, the Egyptian pharaohs were in connection to the zodiac. They dealt with the Dendora star maps and the Zahuti's calendar, which is commonly known as the lunar calendar. So with them studying astronomy to such an extent, most of them in tune themselves with the spiritual aspects and sciences of it. Let's go further. Pharaoh Scorpion, which is what they call it, which we know as Selk or Selket, the one who, and which means the one who came, the one who caused the throat to breathe, is also, the word has also been termed as a serpent. This pharaoh ruled from Thinis, just north of Napata, and his name title is a representation of the zodiac sign of the Scorpio. One more side. And the oldest that I have seen in my research is the pharaoh Bull. Historians don't have much of anything on Bull, or any of these pre-dynastic pharaohs for that matter, because the pharaohs aligned themselves with the zodiac, the spiritual astronomy. The bull was the Taurus, Hathar's calf or Hathar's cow. Also, when the Israelites waited, and it's been said in the scriptures, not deeming that as fact or fiction, I'm just bringing it up for the point of the Israelites so they can have something to talk about. When it's actually said, when the Israelites was waiting on Moses to come back with the 613 commandments, it was said in the Tanakh that the people was worshiping a golden calf. They was worshiping the Taurus, the deity. Only more proves that the Israelites were in fact Egyptians, because I teach that the Israelites were in fact Egyptians prior to everything. They don't have no previous history before Egypt, even though they don't want to proclaim it. The original zodiacal calendar of Egypt, or Kemet, was the Hutui's calendar, also known as the lunar calendar. These calendars was based on the cycle of the equinox, solar and lunar, based on the change in direction, based on the change in direction of the Earth due to polar shifting and other external forces roughly 4,000 years ago. And here is a graph showing you. Our zodiac signs are created when the Earth is aligned with a certain star constellation. At a certain time, it alters the genetic chemistry of the infant. Magnetic energy affects the child's auras, which creates moods and inspires a zodiac sign. This is yet another shown and proof of the great connection, our great connection to nature. On the Dendora, you will see the greatest expression at the chapel of Asar in Hathar's temple. And if y'all want to zoom in, the family who want to look at the graph, it has all the years of each coming, and each coming of a different era. Like we're in the age of Aquarius right now. Each one of those comings, what happens is it only happens every 2,160 years. And those who study numerology knows 2 + 1 + 6 = 9, and 9 is without beginning and without ending, which we affectionately refer to as the new principle, because new being primordial waters, or being a beginning without beginning, truly. So we refer to 9 as that. And anybody wants to debate that, you do your 9 multiplications and watch how it keeps going back to 9. But that is let me close out. But that is my presentation for the brother Jabari, to give him a very brief connection of where Nuwuapians who study Nuwuapu connect into the Kemetic science. We identify ourselves as the ancient Napatans and the pre-dynastic Noba people, who were one of the many tribes that lived inside ancient Egypt. And we take heed to that birthright, and we relive our culture today. Yes, we add and modify our culture and seek to modernize it for today's overstanding and today's laws, principles, and cultural relations. But we adhere to all of our spiritual sciences, rituals, etc. We do not deal with religion. We acknowledge, if you wanted to give us a term, we would adhere to the term animism, which refers to being spiritually connected and acknowledging every living thing has a spiritual connection to all ether or all life, etc. So that's what we as Nuwuapians study, and we live our culture. If you want more information on this right here, you can go to 428 Ocean Avenue, Jersey, New Jersey, which is the Hall of Right Knowledge, Prince York's personal cultural resource center, as well as you can call the number 201-878-2833 and order books, etc. We even put together a starter pack, which I personally am going to give to my brother Jabari for free. $100 starter pack, which is 9 Nuwuapian books titled Actual Facts, and I will make sure I will handpick them to ensure that they are on the necessary topics to grasp his overstanding. And hopefully we can come to a gradual conclusion on that. But everybody else, you are able to order by calling the number 201-878-2833. Order the starter pack, which is 9 Actual Facts for $100. And what it's able to do is give you a great overview for people who want to debate us, and for people who want to debate us, as well as people who want to learn from us and see what Nuwuapu is all about. But now I'm going to pass it over to my brother Sinetta, and then we'll go on to brother Jabari.
All right, brother. You talked about Haramakit. I don't know if you pronounced it that way.
Rehar Aket, yes.
Rehar Aket. Is that the same as Heru? Heru on the horizon.
Yes.
So you said it was something else.
No, I agree with you. Rehar Aket is Haru on the horizon, yes. Okay. But I'm talking about as far as the zodiac it's symbolic. The time period is symbolic to the coming of the Aquarius. And when you get to studying a lot of ancient scripts, you'll see that they talk about, in the studies of the Dendora, they talk about each coming and each year dealing with that calendar. So every 2,160 years, we revert to a different age. Whereas now, after the year 2012, which this is why the Caucasian deemed 2012 as the end of the world, because his lack of understanding of precession changes, solar astronomy, etc. We as Nuwuapians, we study all of that. So that's why we're able to give you such a great overview. But Rehar Aket is utilized as a main principle for the coming of the age of Aquarius, which we're living in today.
All right, sidebar. I dropped my phone about 50 times or 100 times since I had it. Brother, you got to get yourself an Autobot. Yeah, get yourself. I always tell you that, man. Because you know,
you say get the computer printer.
Right. But y'all phone be cracked and broken up. I mean, save your phone, man. Save your phone where you ain't got to go through all of that.
You know, sir, I think it would be a good idea if you personally came and interviewed my father's older brother
I would love that.
at his palace, because that shit is that boy's house is a palace. At his palace.
Which one is in the hospital? Your uncle?
Yes, that's my father's older brother.
Baba Haru know him very well. He said
Yeah.
he want to go and visit him.
Yeah, he's like, that's family.
He
Yeah,
can talk. He can.
yeah, he's alive.
Right, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't know what in the hospital.
No, he's getting a surgery on his hip. That's all.
Oh, okay.
But he's well in his.
Make sure you tell him Baba asked about him.
Yeah, I will. Of course, I'm not gonna
You're gonna
forget.
see him probably open up to you too. Say, oh man, yes.
Well, my uncle always told me his close relations with my uncle had a lot of very close relations with Dr. Ben Yosef, and actually my uncle was thinking about coming forth. I told him not to for the sake of his own integrity, because there's demons in this community, and he's a very old elder. But he was thinking about coming forth to the misconstrusions and the lies that was told on my father, as far as saying my father had a problem with Dr. Ben, etc. Did my father call Dr. Ben insulting names before? Yes. But we as teachers and scholars, yes, we lose our temper from time to time. We discuss different things. At the end of the day, we are brothers. And my father actually made over 4 videos and put Dr. Ben in books, and his Dr. Ben's face is actually on a 6-foot golden frame picture in our Grand Parole right there in Brooklyn, 717 Bushwick Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. So my father did not have any initial issues with Dr. Ben. It was simply disagreements on different studies, as obviously when we're both studying different eras of time, etc., whatever we're studying. And my father said, hey, and he gave an insult, which happens. Brother Jabari and I, we then got, hopefully Sinetta cuts it out for the integrity of the video.
Yeah,
but
no, I already had that in my mind.
the disagreements.
Cuts what out?
The disagreements.
Yeah, just when y'all was
going back and forth.
Not the disagreements, but when y'all was getting a little like down here. And
Yeah, for the integrity of the video. But you know what I mean. But whenever Brother Jabari's ready, I'll just allow Sinetta to question me on what I presented.
all right,
Sanetta probably has more questions.
you getting ready, Jabari?
Yeah, now see, I don't have a full presentation.
Yeah, no, I don't want it to be full because what I want to know is, brother, why sometimes, we don't know everything. Mm-hmm. Why you don't just say, well, brother Sarnetta, I'll get back to you on that. I don't know offhand, as far as I'm saying, because once you put the claim out that the white man don't come from Africa, he was already there. I'm saying, how did he get there? Who created him if he was created? Where did he come from? You got to be able to drop that information, brother. And sometimes it's all right to say, well, sir, I'm going to have to do more research on that. I'll get back to it. Because we don't know everything. You know what I'm saying?
I think the creation of the white man is such an in-depth conversation that its intellectual science will be lost in basic conversation. I would feel as though best on a scholarshiply level that I'm able to put together a full presentation and air it exclusively on Sa-Netta TV, Black News 102.
Right.
Yeah, much love. But I'm able to air it exclusively on Sa-Netta TV because it's so much information, and otherwise, if I'm and this is just my personal feeling, if I begin to express that science, many people, because of their lack of knowledge on the topic and their lack of knowledge in
They're going to say you pseudo.
they're going to call me pseudo before looking it up there. See, call me pseudo, that's fine. I don't really care about the word. It's people like this word, obviously. But I know a lot of people say pseudo out of context. They say pseudo when we're talking about something as simple as you can literally Google and the Wikipedia give you the right answer, and they'll say it's pseudo.
I don't like that word.
Me neither. I feel like
why not?
I feel like nothing.
What it does, it shuts conversation down.
Yes.
It's like an insult. You know what I mean?
I feel like nothing should be deemed pseudo until proven that it does not exist. So, for example, and I'm going to say this, I know Sa-Netta going to get me, but I'm going to say this. For example, I'm not going to say extraterrestrials exist or don't exist, but I'm going to say, being of the fact that there stands to reason that people all over the world have had no connection but amongst these people, have talked about witnessing and having experience with the same looking beings, etc. I will leave it room for question whether they do exist or don't exist. If you scream pseudo, then that's you. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It simply means that I stand to reason. I will give the room for reason and for someone to bring forth eligible facts. I'm not going to just say
this.
Aliens.
Now, you said in your presentation that we always been here. I agree, but I don't think you understand or know how to really break that down. Mm-hmm. When you say we always been here,
but the
are you saying that we've been here before the crocodiles, brother? Because the crocodiles are way older than human beings. Mm-hmm. And do you believe in what's that? The word I'm looking for? Oh man, them big creatures. No, the big creatures. Dinosaurs. Do you believe in dinosaurs that was they in existence at one point in time?
Okay, I'll put it this way. I stand to reason. Being at the fact that, because I don't have the capability of proving whether the dinosaur bones are authentic or not. And I would hate to mislead the masses and the people who choose to say the dinosaurs don't exist, because I have to study their argument. But my entire life, I've always took heed to the fact that dinosaurs existed, and the only point of reference that I could direct people to is the ancient Mayans they actually found some. I believe they were over. I believe it was over 5,000 to 6,000 years old. They had big, smooth black stones where they actually encarved the ancient Mayans and riding different dinosaurs that are herbivores, obviously, but different dinosaurs. And it's not in America control. It's actually in most of Brazil and South America's control. So I can't just say, okay, the white man, even though those people are of lighter descent, I can't say, based on America's society of controlling information, I don't know. So I will stand to reason that I don't know. And as I said earlier, Prince York, you never really say I'll get back to you. Most of the things that you ask me, and to be honest, is quite elementary. If you wanted me to say, if you're trying to get, or if people say, well, what does Prince York not know? I mentioned to the brother earlier, I've been personally studying, trying to find the source, oldest word for Ethiopia. Being the fact I don't like using the word Ethiopia, I'm looking for the source and the oldest. But I found numerous of words used by numerous of people. So that's things that I don't know. And things that I don't know, I'm a person who dedicates being the fact I was born Nuwuapian, I was born reading hundreds of books weekly. Like, that's just not weekly, that's kind of an overstatement. I was born reading hundreds of books yearly. So that's like common in our community. We've raised a generation. It's a great accomplishment of black people who truly enjoy and love to read and study. As we was putting together this presentation, me and my team, we had a blast gathering the facts and the information and putting it together and compiling it so I could be able to present it to the brother Reggie here at the beautiful shrine of my
Before he come up.
So here, okay,
before Jabari come up, let me ask you one more question. Jabari, you ready?
Almost.
Jabari is getting ready to get into the ring with Zion Lex, a Hebrew Israelite. What is your prediction? Or I would say, what positive advice you could add on to Jabari that he can probably use, or he could probably go in and dig in some research and say, well, brother, I think if you do this, you got him. If you do that, you got him. Give us some positive advice for our brother Jabari.
Honestly, I think Zion Lex is gonna kill brother Jabari. No, I'm just playing. Hebrews don't stand a chance.
That's right. You already know.
But any positive advice that I would give the brother Jabari is I would tell Jabari to keep it. Don't get in debt with them. From what I've seen, I haven't debated. I went back and forth with Captain Zora, but I haven't debated with anybody. But what I've seen in the debates is we give them so much knowledge that they didn't even have a clue of, and we actually give them more ammunition for their misconstrusions of pictures and images. Right. We give them so much information to be able to debate us in the first place. If you keep it simple and say, look, bro, God ain't real. I'm leaving it right there, period. Drop the mic. You know, that type of style, not literally. I know not literally, but I'm saying if you keep it very basic and stay in their doctrine, don't allow the Hebrew Israelites to get offensive. Because they get offensive, they're strong in numbers and they come out in numbers. So now they're controlling the crowd, which now overtalks you, and now those vibrational frequencies take you off, and now you had the next, you don't realize that subconsciously you done subdued yourself and stopped talking. So they come in such large numbers as an intimidation factor. So I would say for brother Jabari to stay real calm, chill, and I would hit them directly. Come at the Torah, period. Come for the Torah. Just stay in the Torah and ask them for everything that they say to prove outside of the Bible. That's it. Just prove it outside the Bible.
Guess what the topic is? That should be real good.
Oh, what's the topic, Si?
The origin of civilization.
Oh shit! I might,
Now Jabari, that should be a landslide for.
Well, check it out.
Because now you got to come out that Bible.
They forced to.
Come out the Bible.
Because if they come out talking about God made people out of mud and surgeries with ribs, I mean, I'm leaving. I'm gonna ask for a refund, Si. I'm asking for a refund, so I ain't paid to hear this shit. You know what I mean? But definitely good luck to brother Jabari. I know it's gonna be a landslide for him. When you're dealing with, this is simple. Same thing with the flat Earth. Because Sinetta wanted me to speak on it. You still want me to speak on flat Earth?
Going on that for the.
I've never lost a conversation on the flat Earth theory. I've never lost, and the reason why
maybe I need to call you and Sanchez to bring y'all both on.
They're attacking me too,
They attacking you?
Who, the flat Earth?
Yeah.
I knocked those guys up all over the place on YouTube.
They say,
Yo, hold on, man. You know I've been looking for somebody to challenge them, and nobody likes
I'll still
Tell me that.
we'll tag team
I'm
them.
supposed to have polite tonight.
We'll tag team them.
Deal with.
We will do
We'll
that.
tag team them.
Listen, I'm supposed to have polite tonight to deal with Sanchez tonight on the flat Earth.
Man, that's easy though.
Yeah,
What makes it so easy, bro? I'm gonna spoil it. But what makes it so easy
Just go in on it.
is they say all the pictures from NASA is false. I'll put my hands up. We give them that. Fine. We'll deem every picture from NASA false. We'll say they never put a man on the moon. We'll give you all of that. It still stands the fact of reason that in nature, everything is a circle. I can drop a drop of water and it's a circle. It's always a sphere. My cells, my nucleus, atoms, subatomic particles, everything in nature stems from a circle or some spear-like object. So from that science alone, I won't be able to say it's fact because I have not been in space yet. But from that science alone, I can deem 85% that everything in nature is going to mirror itself. Being the fact we're looking up at a circular sun and a circular moon, and then knowing everything in our body is circular, everything in plants are circular, animals, everything on Earth is circular.
Yeah,
even
hair growing circular.
my hair, well, not white people.
Sparrow.
Theirs come out straight, but ours do because we're the natural people, we're original. So you know what I mean. So with that,
Wait, what did he just say?
I said we're natural, we're original.
So what are they?
There's some GMO, false.
Oh. Okay. I thought you were contradicting your argument. You weren't.
No, yeah, but with us being natural, so starting with cells, nature, right there you can kill them, just right there, and stay on that point. What they'll do is they'll take you in all these other ventures because I've been watching their videos. Just stick on that one point and just say no, nature, no. Nature, no. Okay, let's get a bottle of water and let's drop it slowly. And watch as the drop automatically turns into a circle. Grains of sand are circular. There's nothing in nature. So the only way you can deem the flat earth theory is if you put some form of supreme being or some form of spiritual, godlike, extraterrestrial, whatever you want to call it, being over it to make it that way. And that is a Caucasian science. And just as my brother Pharaoh from the Nuwuapian nation, much loved him, has said, they utilize that as something new so they can lead in something. They couldn't come lead in the Kemetic community because they got too much studying to do. They can't lead Nuwuapians because they got too much studying to do. They can't lead in the Israelite community. So what they had to do, they had to create their own community. So let's all agree on some BS that has been dead for over a millennia, and let's lead in that and fight that. It's really not worth it. Let's stop trying to find more reasons to disagree. We got enough reasons to disagree, black family. I'm dark, you're light, you're dark, I'm light. We got enough reasons to be arguing about. Let's start to deal with what we agree upon and not what we disagree upon. And from there, growth begins. Accept me as a Nuwuapian, as I accept you as a Kemetic scientist, I accept you as an Israelite. And from there, we can communicate as two separate nations. And then we can become states to a united nation, as we've done in pre-dynastic past, such as the Muskogee National Tribes, which migrated and brought together more than 5 Native American tribes together as one. But I'm gonna pass it over to my brother Jabari.
Well, first of all, I wanna say to you that I appreciate the presentation that our dear brother put forward. I didn't intend to do it in this format, family, so I don't have a lot of slides for you. Just have a few slides for you. I was hoping that this would be more of a dialogue, and that's fine. I think that this is just the beginning of conversations that I'm going to have with our dear brother. So we'll continue from there, on camera or off camera. So you might not see them all, but just understand that that's how it's going to work. I want to first acknowledge that he has brought me a gift. I want to thank him for that. That was really, people don't usually come to your house and give you a gift anymore. That's how we did it back in the days. Mm-hmm. People don't do that anymore. So I want to thank him for that. And I have some items that I will give him as well, including my book, 7 Little White Lies, A Conspiracy to Destroy the Black Self-Image. Family, I really hope that it's already signed. I already signed it for you. I really hope that that you get a copy of it, not necessarily because you agree with what I'm saying here on Soneta's platform or not. The reality is that the information in it was composed so that we could actually raise ourselves as people of African descent and understand who we are so we can understand what we're capable of. And so I go through in that book to dismantle some of the greatest misconceptions about people of African descent. So anyway, there's been a lot that's been said, and I really want to come to the point where I hope that I'm able to address quite a bit of it. I will respectfully say that I truly believe that my brother needs to take a history course in ancient Kemet I teach a college-level history course in ancient Kemet. I teach a college-level history course on ancient Nubia, which we would call Kush. And so I think that sometimes what I've heard him do is what I hear a lot of people do who haven't necessarily done all of the study. He's actually condensing large swaths of time. He's condensing thousands of years. Hundreds of years would be a problem. Decades would be a problem. Can you imagine if you found out that someone was saying that your grandson was your father? That'd be a problem. That's just an error of decades. But imagine if you're making an error of hundreds of years. And now let's imagine you're making an error of thousands of years. Let me point out to you where my dear brother has made an error of a few thousand years. First of all, he says that his focus and the focus of his community has been primarily the proto-dynastic and the pre-dynastic folks. Now, you heard us talk about the dynasties, and he said there were 46 of them. I want to be clear that most scholars would only give 32 of them. I could even give you 33. But 46, I have no idea how you could have that many dynasties, even including the rulers that he mentioned, because those rulers are not rulers that we're not familiar with. Those rulers are already in that category. They're usually considered dynasty 0. So if you actually give them a dynasty, you're not going to have more than 32 or 33 dynasties. You have to understand how this works and understand that our Kemetic ancestors, you need a seat, you could grab that seat right back there, pull it forward, you could sit wherever you want. Please be comfortable. You need some water, you need... I'm fine. Okay. Understand that this is important, not because our African ancestors actually said this is dynasty 1, this is dynasty 2. It didn't really work that way. This is how later historians manage understanding what happens when and who did it. So understanding the dynasties is important because we're talking about a large period of time. We're talking about over 3,000 years, so that you have to understand what happened when and how it happened. If you don't understand the dynasties, you could make some of the errors that my dear brother has made. So, for example, he said once again that he deals mostly with pre-dynastic and proto-dynastic information. And he says that the people he's talking about are people that come from Napata and Nakata. Now, I want to say to you, family, that as someone who has studied this and traveled to the region almost more times than I can count, I'm going to make my 15th trip in just 2 months. And understand that when I go, I'm not just going to look around, I'm leading the tours because it has been deemed that I have enough information to do so. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. I'm not just going back and forth there because I like the food. I'm going back and forth there because I'm bringing the information to our family. So, you have to understand, first off, that Napata and Nakata, and I just did this on Google. Somebody's going to say, he does his scholarship on Google. Brothers and sisters, I didn't know that brother was going to bring that up. So yeah, I just pulled it off of Google. And I showed you where the modern village of Kenna, which is where we would say the area of Nakata is, and the modern city of Karima is. Karima is where we'd say the modern city of Napata is. It is 1,209 kilometers apart. Some of you are going to say, brother, we are not in Canada or the UK. What does that mean in miles? It's roughly 766 miles. Understand that is an extremely long distance today and a much longer distance before we had things like helicopters, planes, trains, and cars. This is a very long distance. Even if you could say that these people had communication with each other, you should understand that the distance that they have to span would mean that there would be substantive differences between those people. To say that those people come from those two areas, you would only make that argument if you're not familiar with the history or you're not familiar with the geography. And so you have to understand that. Today, you're straddling a national border. And in fact, even in the ancient world, you would have been straddling mostly a national border. Because for most of Kemetic society, Kemet's border went to about the Second Cataract. I'm not going to even get into that. But you need to understand that this is a large swath of land. Let's go even further. He mentions Napata. And he went into a very interesting, and it really was interesting. There's no shade there. Interesting description of the way that he renders the term linguistically. I found it interesting. In fact, I wrote a lot of notes. I think I'd love to talk with him more about it. But regardless of how interesting that was, understand that Napata is not a pre-dynastic entity. Napata was founded by Tehutmes III in the 15th century BCE. Kemet, even if you want to say Kemet has its origin at 3200 BCE, you're saying that pre-dynastic people were in the city of Napata 1500 years later. You cannot smash literally a millennium and a half and pretend it's the same thing. I can't even smash 40 years together and pretend it's the same thing. You are literally smashing 15 centuries together and pretending it's the same thing. And I'm being conservative because most people would say that Kemet has its beginning at 3200 BCE. So we're talking more than 15 centuries. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. And I want you to understand that the problem with this is the essential problem with much of what my brother has said. He talks about the other language forms that were analyzed in order to come up with this form, Nuwuapian, and I know I'm saying it wrong.
Is that right?
I'm saying it right?
Yes, Nuwuapian.
Okay, with the Nuwuapian, the language of the Nuwuapian nation, at which he says,
Nuwuapian.
You said
Nuwuapian? I said Nuwuapian with a P.
Oh, okay.
Nuwuapian. You know the B and the P sound similar. We agreed on that.
You've been watching the
Yes. So no, listen. I've been focused on this group of the Kemetic society for a long time. I was actually pleased to be able to have someone here that could talk competently about the Nuwuapian nation. That's why I asked him to be here. I wasn't hiding. I didn't hide behind my door with a knife to jug him when he came by. Jug. I'm showing you my Guyanese background. To stab him when he came by. There wasn't a bucket of water like in Home Alone to pour on him when he came in. I really wanted to have a real dialogue, and I still want to have a dialogue with this brother because there are too few people who hear the call of ancient Kemet. We do not have the luxury of separating each other, but we should come to some fundamental understanding of what we're trying to resurrect. That's why I wanted to have this conversation. So, as he smashes these things together and he talks to you about these proto-dynastic civilizations, he's talking about the Sabian script. By the way, you should understand that the reason why it's called Sabian is because it comes from the Sabian kingdom, which I'm going to give him 200 years. The earliest that it could come forward is about 1400 BCE. Once again, please understand that could, by no means could you say something that comes from 1400 BCE actually is earlier than 3200 BCE. You are once again smashing over 1500 years. By no means should the Sabian script, if there is a script, we could talk about that later, family. Don't get me on this. We'll talk about the script later. We actually can't say that is pre-dynastic. It is not. Ge'ez, which is he keeps saying the name wrong. And I think that means, I'm not sure if he's actually visited Ethiopia, and I have, and I take groups there. So you gotta come with me. Not because I'm trying to sun you or nothing, but just because you're gonna see some stuff that's amazing there. So understand that Anika and I lead tours to Ethiopia. We'll probably be back there in January.
I would like to get Tazariak to go with you.
Listen, man. Listen, as much as Tazariak and I disagree on, as much as we disagree on, we would just have fun being there because I enjoy him as a person and I think he's an honor. He's a person that has honor. So, I wouldn't have to sleep with one eye open with him next to me because we would work like that, even though we disagree on a lot. So, it would be amazing to see these things. Africans, you have to see what you did when you were on top of the world. Because if you want to get back there, you had better listen to what your ancestors are saying. More on that later. So he mentions Ge'ez, which is no longer spoken, by the way. The language is now called Amharic. And I want you to be really clear that my queen worked with the primary scholar of Amharic studies. If you go to Cornell University's website, you will still see the description of the study that she did with a wonderful scholar, Dr. Ayele Bekeri, who is from Ethiopia and went back to Ethiopia. So family, sometimes people say that I must be European because I have an Ivy League degree. I studied at Africana Studies. I studied with African people who had the highest level of scholarship. That's what I did. And with all the classes that I took with the Tomhu outside of Africana Studies, my most difficult classes were Africana classes because they said, you can't come here and get an A because you're black. You can just think you're going to black it up. That takes scholarship to understand what your African ancestors did. And they put me to task. And that is where you are seeing the fundamental basis of my knowledge come from. It comes from the Africana Studies and Research Center at Cornell University. And then he mentions Ethiopian. Of course, he says Ethiopian. I know that he admits that that's a Greek word. I'm not beating him up on the use of the word Ethiopian. I am not. But I want you to understand that all of those languages he mentioned, by the way, the Sabian and Ge'ez are really, they work together. So he's almost like said, I was with four people, Jabari, and Jabari. And Jabari is not as old as he'd like Jabari to be. So even though he's actually not described four different languages when he told you he did, he also is not describing someone who is old as he says they are. So if you're studying proto and pre-dynastic cultures, you should know this. You cannot do that. And the reason why he's doing that is because he's trying to tell you that the Nuwuapic language is older. It's an ancient language. Family, even if I just give our elder, Dr. Malachi York, if I just say, okay, he did those things that he said he did with those elders. Understand that the information that we've received does not confirm that. It doesn't confirm that. Some of you somewhere are going to find pictures of Jabari shaking Donald Trump's hand. I met him at one point. He gave some money to the New York Urban League. I was working at the Urban League. Does that mean I was studying with Donald Trump? No. Oh my God. No. I can't believe he went there. No. Just because you show a picture with someone don't mean that you studied with them. I had pictures with lots of people.
Really? That's the shot you got? I thought you was going to come home.
So I'm not trying to destroy you, brother. You're my brother. So I want you to understand that even if I assume that he did what he said he did, what the product of what he's describing does not tell me he did what he said he did. The Nuwuapic language is a newer language, and I'm not even beating our brother up for creating a new language. I get creating new languages. What's wrong with trying to speak another language than the language that the Tomhu gave us? There's nothing wrong with that, but here's the challenge. If you hear the call from ancient Kemet, you should read what your ancestors wrote. If you hear the call of ancient Kemet, you should be able to go back to their greatest accomplishments, the temples, the tombs, and read what they left on the wall for you. Because ultimately, I argue at family that our ancestors understood that there would be a period we were catching hell. That our ancestors understood there'd be a time that we would not be able to speak African tongues to each other. That we would not be able to go back to our home as anything more than visitors and tourists. And that's why they wrote their greatest knowledge down on stone. Because they knew there'd also be a time that we would mature and look for our names and look for our greatest teachings. If you are using a language other than the ancient Kemetic language and you consider that you are part of the Kemetic community, you have to be challenged on that. That's why people in the Shrine of Ma'at learn the Medunetter. My queen is doing a class in less than a month. She's doing a class, both in person and online. That's the reason why when Baba Heru and Heru Ankh Samad Pt.2 was one of my greatest teachers, and he is my spiritual father. So when something is not right, he's calling me. When something is amazing, he's there with me. He has been my spiritual father for nearly 2 decades. But when I have disagreements with him, and we disagree on the meanings of things all the time, because there comes a time when the teacher enjoys sparring with the student, because you've got enough information now that you can sharpen each other. We do this all the time. If you had ever come and seen us in his studio talking, you would say, is that your teacher? Why y'all disagreeing so much? And then I will go and hug him like he is my blood father, because that's how much I love him, because he has been committed to me from day one. That's why. But when we have those disagreements, half of it is in the glyphs. You believe that? Really? Let's look at the glyphs. Because you can't make an argument without looking at what was written. I can't just make an argument because I think it sounds nice. That's not the level of scholarship that I learned at Cornell or learned at Baba Heru's feet in the Shrine of Ptah. That's not how I was trained. You have to prove what you believe by reading the script because your ancestors gave you one. If you are developing a new script, you are cutting the tie between yourself and your ancestors. I'm talking about language upstairs. Family, I hope you understand why Jabari spent that much time on it. Some of you might have said, what is going on? Didn't they cover that topic? It was of critical importance, especially because Prince York does not respect the things that come from the Tamhu, from the European. So that means that he would not read, for example, a book like this called Ancient Egyptian Literature, Volume 1, which has a lot of wonderful translations of your Kemetic stories. This is in English. And the person that edited is Miriam Lichtam, who was a Tamhu. So he would discard this. So if you're going to discard this, then you have to be able to read it yourself.
We can, and I can.
If you are teaching your family another language, then you can't read it yourself. And he says it's not true. Family, please don't make me bring stuff down here and ask him to translate it, because he's going to struggle. I'm hearing how he's pronouncing words. Family, I'm telling you that they are not studying the Medu Neter enough. I'm telling you that. Please don't let this young man make me do that.
You complimented us on how.
I'm not saying you're not without compliment. I've complimented you many times. Okay.
We talked about.
Okay.
You're asking me about.
Okay. Let me continue here. Because I don't want to get into all of that. Okay. So let's continue to move. By the way, he in doing that, that's a problem. You have to draw from the language. I want to get into something else that this brother actually told me. And he actually said that Europeans are not Africans. Family, I know that the Tamhu has done some devilish things to us. I know the Tamhu has done some of the worst possible things to us. When I tell you that they're actually our family, it's not because I have any connection to them. It's not because I'm beholden to them. It's not because I love them more than I love myself. I'm telling you what science tells us. Science tells us that the European, the Asian, and anybody else you want to bring into the conversation, they are actually our children. And I know that our dear brother and my dear brother, Sa Neter, had talked about, actually for a little while, they actually talked about what happens when your arm is in a cast. And I'm going to say to you, it's an interesting conversation, but it doesn't actually address the point. What you have to understand, oh boy, did I just shut this off? What you have to understand, what you must understand is that we're not talking about something that happens over a matter of weeks or matter of months. We're talking about something that happens over tens of thousands of years. And you should know that every scholar worth their weight who are European, the Tamhu, who are African, who are Asian, now understands that, it's not connecting to this. Now understands, because I have to put in my password, now understands that the African is the origin of humanity. That's what they understand. There are some times that they try to disagree. Those disagreements are ridiculous. I can't tell you how many times people have sent me the article, the study that came out recently that says that they found earlier bones in a part in Libya. Sometimes they find earlier bones in a part of Europe. But even the people that are coming out with those studies are not saying that there's not an African genesis. What they're saying is that perhaps Africans left their continent earlier than we previously knew. There's no distinction here. Scholars understand that if you look at the fossil remains, you can tell that the earliest fossil remains are in Africa. Now let's go further than that, because some of you, and I remember that there was actually my pastor when I was still a Roman Catholic and just coming into knowledge said, well, how do we know that we're just not going to find older bones? We don't have to just rely on old bones, family, because now we can do genetic studies and we can actually see that people in Central South Africa have the entire complement of human DNA. Did you hear what I said? Mm-hmm. That they have the DNA of every other group on the planet. And if you look at their the mutations that occur regularly in humanity, you can see that you can actually see when people diverge. That's how they're able to tell this story now, according to genetics, and not just through looking at bones. We no longer even have to look at bones. We know that every person on the planet is the offspring of one African woman. This was the actual analysis that took place in 1988. Now, I can't beat up my brother I'm sure he saw it even though he wasn't around yet. I was a young man in 1988. And I remember my father never brought home a magazine and talked about it. But he brought home these magazines in a paper bag because he was holding them like he had gotten some cherished information that he needed to share with his family. And when he got home, he said, my name wasn't Jabari then. He said, Corwin, look at this. And he showed me the magazine. He pulled it out of the paper like it was sacred, like he was pulling out gold. And he shows it to me and says, this tells us who we are. And as soon as I read it, you know what he said? He said, put it back in the paper bag. We're going to talk about it at dinner. Because he wanted me to understand who I was, family. This information is actually old. So what did the scientists do when they came up with this study? They looked at the placentas. Yes, the placenta is that sac that holds babies. They looked at placentas from dozens of women from every continent, of every ethnic group, of every language group, of every quote-unquote racial group in the world. And they looked at what is called the mitochondrial DNA. And as they looked at the mitochondrial DNA, that portion of the DNA allows you to go back among your mother's line. And as they did that, they could see that every person, regardless of their racial group, regardless of their ethnic group, regardless of the continent they lived on, regardless of anything, whether they had blue eyes, red hair, black hair, whether they were the darkest African or the palest European, they could see that they all had an origin from one woman in Africa. I didn't say African women, one woman in Africa. That's a powerful story because I know my mother, who had 4 children, was amazing. You can't mess with her, even today. She's nearing 80, and she is one of the toughest women I know. Can you imagine if you gave birth to all of civilization? What kind of woman would that be? That's the kind of stock that you come from, African women. And I know that we're angry with the European, with the Tom Who. I get it. But fundamentally, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to first do what Grandmama did. Boy, go get the switch. And then when they come in with the switch, you deal with the transgression and then you love them. I'm not saying we need to love them before we deal with the transgression, family. We need to deal with what they've done and then love them. Why? Because then we have to put all of human civilization back in proper order. The African is the leader of civilization, not just the African leader of Africans. The African is the elder. The elder has to set forth the parameters by which all of humanity will work. That's what we need to do. And so telling us that the Tom Who is not our child, by the way, that even gives them more power because they're not even our children. They have their own pristine origin. That's the argument that Europeans made. And I know that my brother York has used the word Caucasian. That's because I haven't yet given him a copy of my book. The word Caucasian was developed because a man named Johann Friedrich Blumenbach was trying to argue that the European had a separate origin. That's where it came from. And so he said, absolutely.
You got to give me one, man.
I gave you a book.
Yeah, you did.
You gave it away.
No, when I interviewed Professor James Small,
yeah,
he was like, "Sir, I really want to read this. I really want to read it. I said, all right, just take my book.
I'm gonna give you. Listen
And I told
now, family. I don't know if you can hear. I don't know if you can hear what Sonetta is saying. Sonetta is saying that.
When you see Professor Smalls, he gonna
Listen,
be able to talk with you.
Sonetta just said that one of my most esteemed elders wanted to read my book and he gave it to him.
Right.
How in the world could I say to Sonetta, you gave away your book, you can't get one?
Right.
I'm completely honored. If I was a little lighter, you would see me blushing a little bit here. I feel it that an elder wanted to read my book. That's the greatest honor that you could give. I have to say thank you to you for even giving it to him.
Right.
So of course you got a book.
Yeah, because I want to read your book.
So you honestly need to know that this is something that we discuss. We should no longer use the word Caucasian because the word Caucasian actually means that they are the original people. Because the man that developed the term said that.
Came from the Caucasus.
Yes, but his argument was they came from the Caucasus Mountains and the rest of humanity devolved from them. That the Asian and the African were their inappropriate offspring. That's what the word means. Get rid of it, family. I know that you use the word Caucasian because you're trying to be polite to them. That's not being polite. You might as well bend down and give them your hand. Stop it. We got to get rid of that term. That's why you hear me use the word Tomhu. By the way, that's the oldest name for the European. We gave it to them. And you've heard me say that even Europe is the name of an African queen. So we have given the European all of their names because we are the elder of civilization. Don't mess with that order of things. You have to do the research, family. Okay, so let's move to another topic. Brother, my dear brother says also that the pyramids in Sudan are older than Kemet. Do carbon dating. First of all, you need to. Before I do that, can I show the family this Sonetta? Wow, it's not moving.
Right now, family on the Prince York channel.
It's not moving.
I gave a very, very valid and intelligent explanation on many things. Brother Jabari's misconstrued.
Are you actually doing that while we're here?
Indeed.
That's not distracting? That's not fair.
I'm not distracting him.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Oh, come on.
So what's going on is...
I wouldn't do that while he was talking. I would not do that as his family.
Look at them.
I wouldn't do that as his... Listen, folks, listen, just understand that while he was talking, first of all, I didn't agree to this framework, this platform. I didn't agree that we were going to stand up here and do presentations because I fundamentally said that this was not a debate. But he wanted to do that. So now I'm doing it. He went first. I was silent. Some of you, I didn't say you were upset.
Okay.
I said that some of you actually might have thought that Brother Jabari was not in the room. I was sitting here quietly listening to his presentation. And so I would ask that he gives me the same respect to sit quietly and listen to my response and my presentation.
I am. Have I not?
And so, not if you're talking to the family out loud on Facebook, just 4 feet from me.
We're on YouTube Live.
Or YouTube. That's not the way you do that. So anyway, take a look at this description of the migrations. We can actually see, according to this map, when people got to other parts of the world. So you can actually see that people didn't get to China until 50,000 years ago, roughly. That's a long time, family. In 50,000 years, your body will adapt to certain changes in your environment and you will actually change. By the way, we're not even talking to you about which African left to go to China or to North America or to Australia. So you have to understand that we were on Africa so long that there were even changes amongst groups of people on the African continent. So please understand that that is what you're seeing. You have to understand that what we're talking about is the African being the origin of civilization. And as you see that, I truly hope that you'll put your African mothers and fathers in their proper context. Let me say something else before I move on here. Brother York also, Prince York also said that the pyramids in the Sudan are older than those in Kemet. First of all, you should know that the word pyramid, I'm not begrudging him for using the word pyramid, because if he used the older terms, some of you would not know what he was talking about. But I'm only begrudging him because he continues to use the word Egypt. And I will not give the Greeks my homeland. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to call that land Kemet. And I'm going to tell you clearly, if he wants to call it Tamaray, I would say Tom Mary. I have no problem with him doing that. But on this platform, he doesn't need to say Egypt. Family, you are people who are doing research and scholarship. Don't allow him to continue to give your legacy away to the Tom who has taken it. That land is called Kemet. And the pyramids, the reason why they call that place, those things pyramids, is because when the Greeks came to Kemet, they looked at these magnificent structures and they said, you know what, these look like the little rice cakes that we fire when we're out camping. Those are called pyramids. So they ended up calling one of the greatest engineering, one of the greatest architectural, one of the greatest spiritual devices ever conceived that can still not be replicated by a small rice cake that they used when they were camping. I'm not going to use the word pyramid with you either, because I think you're stronger and you're more intelligent and you're more studied. I'm going to use the word Mer or Merkut. You probably heard me use the word Merkut before. So that's what I'm going to use with you. But he says the Merkuti in the Sudan are older than Kemet. Do carbon dating. Family, you can't carbon date rock.
I never said do carbon dating.
You did. He says he didn't say carbon dating. You have an advantage here that I don't even have. Just run back the video and you'll hear him say, do carbon dating. That's a direct quote. I wrote it down as such. So you need to understand that you cannot carbon date rock. But what you can do is you know who built them when, because each of the rulers would have built one for themselves. And we know when they ruled. We know that that entire city was built almost at the time when Kemet was falling. We're talking about around the 25th dynasty is when they were built. That great Merkuti field at Nuri, that great Merkuti field at Merowe, those are not older than Kemet and then Kemet's Merkuti. By no stretch of imagination, no one would argue that who was familiar with the history. And so our dear brother needs to study the history. It would strengthen his arguments. It would strengthen his arguments. And so I really hope that he continues to do that. The reason why he did that is because he wants to say that spending time in the Sudan connects him to pre-dynastic Kemet. And you have to understand that the people he's describing don't have pre-dynastic languages. The people he's describing are later in the region. The people that he's describing don't have scripts.
He's saying they don't have.
And so you have to understand that even now, somebody's going to say, what about the Meroitic script? That's a script that comes after. So if you're talking about pre-dynastic Kemet, find me the pre-dynastic script from the area around modern day Ethiopia or the Sudan. In fact, find me an older script anywhere in Africa. You can't do it. I'm telling you that I know this because I've devoted my life to studying it, family. I've devoted my life to seeing these ancient spaces. Our brother even said he had not been to Ethiopia to see those places. I have. I lead trips there. So some of this that we've heard will change when our dear brother does a little bit more research and a little bit more study. He also says that the 6 kings of Europe were called that because 6 is VI. By the way, family, you know that VI is a Roman.
6 is VI.
Is Roman numerals, right? How in the world would they call them the Vikings using a Roman language when they had other languages? Listen, I don't even want to spend time on the Tom Who. But I want you to understand that those arguments need work. Our dear brother needs work in history in order to make these arguments. Now, let me begin to sum up now. I want you to really get that one of the things that our brother said to us is that because of the study that is done in ancient by his community, they know everything. Now he used some more colorful language, but you have to know. I wouldn't use it, but I'm not begrudging him for using it. I'm just telling you, I'm trying to quote him, but I'm not going to say it directly. That they know everything, and if this is an actual display of the knowledge that they've accumulated, then they need to know more than everything because there's a lot missing. There's a lot missing. Now, I'm going to also say to you that I really wanted to have a conversation with my dear brother rather than be in more of a debate format. But you should also see that I even wanted to question him about these sorts of images. These are the sorts of images that made me not actually go. I'll even give you the slide. I'll give it to you. These are the things that made me not actually join the predecessors of the Nuwuapian community, because when I saw them, I actually thought, well, what am I seeing here? Are we seeing that the leader is depicting himself as Jesus?
Is that your
Now, I want to be really clear.
interpretation or
It absolutely is my interpretation.
You say that on camera.
So I just said it on camera.
Okay, great.
So I want to be really clear. I want to be really clear with you. By the way, this is exactly what he said he wasn't going to do, but he's doing it, and that's okay, because he's going to get better at this, and I want him to get better at this. Now, let me say to you, I'm young into Kemetic science. I was actually in the Kemetic community before this young man was born. And I want you to be really clear that the question that I want you to understand, he's losing his discipline and his patience. And why would he do that on camera? If he wants to be upset with me, be upset with me off camera, because family, you're seeing how he's behaving. Just at least be strategic if you're not going to be disciplined. At least be strategic. Anyway, look at this. Now, I'm telling you that he's depicting himself in many ways in the way that Jesus does. He actually believes that some of these people were historical, literal characters. And family, if you followed anything I've said, I will say to you that Jesus Christ is a mythological character. But I will also say to you that it's dangerous when we identify ourselves with those people that people think are deities. I will not do that with you, family. You heard me have a deep conversation with my dear brother Reggie. And Dr. Reggie said to me, he said, one of the problems I have with people who practice Kemetic spirituality is that they paint themselves as kings and as gods. That's what he said to me. And I said to Reggie, I will not do that. I will not do that. Was Brother Reggie not also talking about these sorts of images? We have to be careful. Now, let's be clear. I believe that the divine force is inside everyone. But one of the things that turned me off from the Ansar Allah community when I was a young man was that I would see images in books that would show Moses and Adam, and they almost all looked like Dr. York. And I said, what is he trying to do? Is he trying to tell people that he's divine and that they should worship him? Now, I'm going to tell you that our Prince York will answer that question. And I know he's going to disagree. And I would be pleased if he disagreed. But what I do want to say is that we have to be careful. We have to be careful. If this is what we do, we are going to do damage to our people. Because fundamentally what we need to do is not give them leaders, not give them deities. We need to tell them that they are divine and that they have the ability to do all those things that are necessary, that they can actually change their environment, that they can reform their communities, and that they can actually sit once more at the forefront of human civilization. As long as we continue to tell them they need to follow someone, that's a problem. Now, you're going to say to me, what do you mean? Aren't you a chief priest of a temple? Do people not follow you? Well, in my tradition, being a chief priest means that I actually have a responsibility to actually care for people, to give to people. Not that I am above them. Listen to any of my initiates and they'll tell you that I say that. I'm not imbued with more divine energy than they are. My job is to help them cultivate the divine energy inside of them. And so I want us to really be careful with this, family. Now, as I close, I want to thank Prince York for coming forward to having this conversation. It's not the format that I intended. It's not the format I intended. In fact, I know that Prince York, I'm sure that's Anika coming in. I know that Prince York is upset with this slide. I know he is. And that's, honestly, if we were having a discussion and a dialogue, he wouldn't be upset with a slide. But he didn't want to have a conversation. He wanted us to do this in this way where I present information, he presents information. So this is what happens. I was completely prepared to have this on my tablet and show it to him and ask him to talk about it. But I wanted him to do it because I have some concerns about it. And as long as we continue to do that, our people will be stifled. As long as we continue to do this, our people will not reach their highest heights. So with that, I want to say peace, family. I hope that I've brought you information that has been edifying and helpful. I hope that I've helped you to move forward and understand some concepts. And I know that even in your comments, I'm not saying that I'm doing that because I am a master teacher. I am a student like you. I just might have been along for the ride a little bit longer than some of you have. And so my job is to help bring you along just as others brought me along. And that I learn from those who I teach just as much as I learn from people who are teaching me. So with that, I say, Shem Matep, the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. I look forward to having our Prince York discuss some of this. Thank you.
First and foremost, family, roll back to everybody that's on my channel, as well as peace to the people over here. I find this picture right here, I want everybody to get a close-up on it, quite hilarious. And it's all based on the interpretation of the brother Jabari, not the interpretation of Dr. Malachi Z. York. Dr. Malachi Z. York's goal in even putting pictures and breaking some laws of the Quran, which putting pictures in the biblical text at all, was for the purpose of we as black people could see ourselves as gods. And the pictures of most of the people that's in Dr. Malachi Z. York books are drawings done by a sister by the name of Joyce Haynes, who actually drew depictions of the people within the community, influential people within the Nuwuapian community. So they're not made to look like Dr. York. They're people within our community. So therefore, when we were speaking about Moses, etc., it's not supposed to be the real image. It's supposed to be so we can emulate ourselves as such. Because what the Greeks and as termed as what they call it, what they term as pagan worship or idol worship, we as ancient Egyptians term as our ancestors, and we put our faces and put our stamp on each and everything. Another thing Brother Jabari slipped and made a very, very sad mistake on was my interpretation and my study of Napata and the ancient Nakada, but once again, Brother Jabari keeps trying to debate me on language, yet he speaks none, and Prince York speaks 7. So with that overstand, and I'm actually getting more of my fluency working on 8 to 9 languages now. So when dealing with, he talks about the Medunetta, right? And this is my last thing I'm going to say before I close out. When dealing with the Medunetta, he says, and that he makes proclamations in which Nuwuapians have never said. He makes assumptions in which Nuwuapians have never said. And he has not to prove in none of his presentation, not one quote directly from Dr. Malachi Z. York saying that Nuwuapians do not hold to the Medunetta. He cannot show or prove that. He cannot show and prove that this image of Dr. Malachi Z. York is of him in a Messiah-like figure. The master teacher, we look at the master teacher as a teacher and as a messenger for our people in this day and time. We do not put the master teacher at a religious stance of any kind. We acknowledge him as a master teacher. We put his image in the books that he wrote. As you will find, I'm pretty sure many authors have their images in the books they wrote. But this is the game that people like to play so they can give those subtle indications that Dr. Reggie gave numerous of times when they lead towards religious belief system, etc. But Brother Jabari is speaking from a sense as which he has knowledge on the Nuwuapian community when he has absolutely none. He from what I've seen, he's only presented 2 of the Nuwuapian books. So I'm explaining Napata and Nakada. I did not jump over 15,000 years worth of time period, 1,500 years of time period. That did not happen whatsoever. What I said is I explained to Brother Jabari upstairs, and I hope it's left in the video and not cut out, that dealing with Napata, I said, if we are a people who live in a region and we move out of the region because of political or social issues, we were dated by Caucasian researchers by the time that we landed on a certain region, not based on our birth date. So whereas Napata, I completely agree. Whereas the common term, most common term that people call him is Thutmose III, where they would say founded Napata. That is absolutely correct. But the people of that culture, the language of that culture, etc., already existed. Brother Jabari commonly uses common studied, what I would say the obvious and quick research answers to things. Whereas Nuwuapians, we get much more in depth and we try to find the mysteries of Egypt, not just what's on the common, what you can find, as he stated in the beginning of his build, that people on my channel miss, the things that you can find on Google. And now at the end of everything, I was respecting his build until he attempted to debunk Dr. York with these images saying that Dr. York, or implying that Dr. York said himself as a Jesus or a Messiah-like figure, when the master teacher has said specifically outside his mouth in the video, truth versus faith versus belief, belief. I am not Jesus. I never depict myself as Jesus. I'm the one who's going to come and teach you that you all are gods on the planet Earth. And that's what we were about. And we put our images on everything. If you go in a Nuwuapian temple, you'll see all of the Nuwuapian elders deified in a deified form with a full kapresh on their head, as well as a namuz or dabar as a headdress, and deemed as deification, because we deify all our ancestors, both living and deceased. So that's how we as Nuwuapians apply. As far as the space between Nakata and Napata, the entire region of Egypt, which he refers to as Kemet, but I refer to as Egypt comfortably because of the people who lack the understanding of Kemet, is different styles of teaching. I'm not going to debate it, because you can't debate a teacher to another teacher's style of teaching. I'm not going to play knick-knack paddywhack with that. But as far, like, seriously, but as far as the distance between Nakata and Napata, we all know between the entire Nubo-Egyptian region was all controlled by the same, what they want to call Kemetic, Kushite, Nubian, whatever title you want to give it, empire. I uphold to not only African scholarship, but I uphold to our own research and our own people. The Caucasian dictates all information globally, and he feeds you his story, which becomes history. Thus, the brother was very correct when he said Prince York needs to get his historical records right. I very much so do. I need to study more of the white man's story so I can teach all the black man's, because I'm not very informed. I don't like to stay in the formation of anybody. I'm very outformed, and I deal more so with African directly descent. That's what we study, and that's what we as Nuwuapians stand on. We deal with pre-dynastic and proto-dynastic Egypt and Nubia, and in that time period, the language that was spoken, we utilized, which if you want to deem the right or wrong, but me and him had a full conversation. He was not able to converse with me in Medunetta. He said that his wife does, but he was not able to.
What?
I spoke directly to him and then I even shown and proved the similarity in the language, whereas he said words like Tamhu, or Tamhu, and we in Nuwuapic, we have a proper pronunciation, being the fact that I've actually studied and mastered multiple languages. And he constantly makes these constant quotes at my age, as if he did not think I was qualified enough to speak to him, he wouldn't have asked to speak to me in the first place. So being the fact I believe I'm about half his age. I'm 25 years old currently, if you're going by the Gregorian calendar. It being the fact that I'm half the brother's age, I think I'm very much so, in even most cases, overqualified. He mentioned I had not been to Ethiopia, which I have not. My family is in Sudan. I've visited Sudan on numerous occasions. I've been all over Africa. I've never been to Ethiopia. But guess what? I'm still a very young man, still a very wealthy man, and I will definitely plan that trip. And as a matter of fact, I will go with Brother Jabari, as well as I will read his book, challenge his book, debunk his book, destroy his book, and make his book sales go up even more so everybody else can do the same. This is Prince York, and understand it. You can't stop Pops. You can't stop the Alphamation, and the brother Jabari himself is reading Dr. York Alphamation. I'm sure he cannot say that everything in the book is false. Whether he chooses to agree or disagree, our languages are actually quite mirrored, and I shown and proved it to him. Very few words are different, but 85%, which brother Jabari agreed with upstairs, of the language is in fact the same. Well, I said, for example, I said the word Kemet comes from Chem, which is meaning black or dark tone, and I said black or dark tone in our language, Nuwuapian, is what? Do you remember? Is kamem.
What'd you say?
I said, did you remember what I said?
I'm sorry, I was writing a note. I'm so sorry.
Is kamem, meaning black. So as you can see, Kem and kamem, the similarities. As you see how they say, y'all say Hotep, or you hold to Hatep?
I say Hetep.
Hetep. They say Hetep. What does
say Hetepu, actually.
What does Hetepu mean to you?
Hetepu
in the Medunetta
generally means, well, in the Medunetta we can disagree with what it means. You can describe it almost as saying offerings or blessings.
Okay, great.
So some people say that it means peace, but in actuality, you could describe it as peace, but it means something a little bit more as well.
Any Nuwuapian streaming live right now will know as fact that the word Hetep in Nuwuapuyi means bliss or bless. That is an actual fact. So the correlation being, and that's the thing, and I'm gonna say this for everybody on YouTube everywhere. If you are not fluent or even have a Nuwuapic study book, which I will send you and your mate to review, if you are not fluent or even have a Nuwuapian study book on our language, you are not even nearly close able to debunk such a theory unless you have studied it. I can't try, and nor am I trying to take away from the Medunetta. He even went to the aspect, and this was the greatest reach of them all, and then I'm going to leave it alone. He even went to the aspect of saying that the Nuwuapic was out of tone, when in actuality, Nuwuapic, we utilized it as a tuning for the proper translation, because we're not going to hold to the Caucasian being of African descent. I will always disagree on that. And we're not going to hold to the Caucasian of having the proper translation and trust in the white man all of a sudden after we was just being lynched less than 60 years ago. But we're not going to hold to...
We've been lynched this year.
I'm sure. So I'm not going to hold to the same source. I'm not going to hold to the same source to bring forth facts. Let's stop the BS. And if Brother Jabari would like to really put this together, then Side Netter, this is an official call out.
What?
And I'm calling Brother Jabari out.
Don't do that, man.
I want to do an official debate with him. I would like to do it in March of next year, 2018, and I would like to do a pre-game show on SideNetter TV on Google Hangout, so therefore we can show and prove the facts. And let me not drop SideNetter's mic, but y'all get the idea. You can't
Pretend. Drop it past where they can see. It's dropped. Just like, it's dropped.
Go ahead, Jabari, real quick.
I admire this young man. I really do. And I'm not calling him young because I'm trying to sun him or insult him. I'm calling him young because he's young. That's all. Brother's 25. By the way, because I am admiring. No, I didn't. Because I'm admiring what he's able to do in a very short period of time. That's why I'm saying that he's a young man. Because I'm actually impressed that someone at 25 can do what he does. So if you don't hear me saying young man and say that is admiration, I don't know what to say to you, family. I'm saying that, and I said to you, I don't know if I could do what he did when I was 25. And I had a college degree. So I want to say that I respect what he is doing. I do believe that just like a muffin that falls when you take it out the oven too soon, he needs a little bit more baking. And that's the problem that we have here. He said many things, and I hope that you were listening carefully. He says, first of all, that I can't talk about Nuwuapian unless I understand the language. Well, I'm telling you that when he describes the origins of the language, that doesn't make any sense. So maybe the language is great, but he can't describe it. I'll give him that. Maybe he's not the right person to have this conversation around the Nuwuapian language around. I'll give him that. I would love to be able to talk with someone who could actually tell me where the sources are. By the way, he says, listen carefully, he says that 85% of the language is the Medu Neter. But then he says that he took those languages from pre-dynastic people and who spoke different versions of languages and put them together. Family, none of those pre-dynastic people are pre-dynastic people. I've already explained that to you. And then second of all, none of those people speak the Medu Neter. So if you got your language from those people, how could 85% of it be the Medu Neter? He even has the nerve to say that he tried to discourse with me in the Medu Neter. Family, I don't know what he was speaking. That was not the Kemetic language. And that's the problem that I have with a group of people who do not focus on the Kemetic language, because they continue to use things and to say things and presuppose that they're speaking the Medu Neter. Prince York did not speak the Medu Neter. When he said the word hetep, that was the most Medu Neter he's spoken in this house in 7 hours. So you need to understand, family. Why would you create a language when we have one? Why would you do that? And if you're going to do it because you want to be able to prevent other people from understanding what you're saying, I get it. If he said that to me, I would say, oh, I got you. If he said to me, I created a new language because we wanted to have people speak something other than the Tamhu tongues that they were forced upon them, and so we developed a new one, but that says nothing about the one that you're talking about, I would say, well, I kind of understand that, but if you are from the Kemetic tradition, you should speak the Kemetic language.
We love your crown.
And so that's what I'm saying. So I gotta take issue with that. I have to take issue with that, because what he's saying does not pass muster. Family, just listen to what he said and think about it yourself. You know that what he's saying doesn't make sense. You know that. Let's go a little bit further with what he said. He said that that his father was not trying to paint himself as Jesus the Christ. Look at his hand position. Look at the lamb. Look at the lion behind him. Look at all the people here. By the way, if he wants to say that he didn't just do this, he needs to show me some other images of Jesus the Christ that aren't of his father. Because when I was trying to come into knowledge and I looked at the literature I didn't do that to you. Don't do that. Don't do that. Have some discipline here. Don't do that. Don't do that. Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond as many times as you like, or as many times as you're able. And you've already called me out for a debate in March. As long as I'm in the country, I will be there. I don't know if you know what you're asking for, but that's okay. We could do it.
We started.
So you need to by the way, understand that I didn't even bring slides and he's already upset. I just made these sitting in the back of the room. When I have a chance to bring slides, you're going to have to call 911 for this brother, because as good as his blood pressure is, he going to lose it. He's not ready for me. And he shouldn't be ready for me. He's 25. He shouldn't be ready for me. I respect what he is able to do, but don't call me out and try to have a debate. If you do that, I'm not going to go easy on you because you're younger. You're going to get annihilated because you demanded a debate. So family, when I do annihilate him, some of you are going to say, look at that old man beating up on a young boy. The young boy, listen, it's like I'm at the barbershop and the young boy got up and straight duffed me. What am I supposed to do? Say, oh, that's a young boy. I'm going to just take it. No, if he swings, he got to deal with the fire and the fury when it comes. And that is what he's going to get. That's what he's going to get. So I don't know if he knows what he's asking for. I also don't know why he has to wait all the way to March. I don't know what he's thinking he's going to learn between September and March.
Because you have a debate in December.
But you better, that has nothing. Brother, I could prepare for this over the course of a few hours. So I don't know why he thinks that this is going to be challenging to me. So anyway, you can see, he's telling you not to trust your lying eyes. By the way, even just look at his body language. He was so uncomfortable that he stood in front of the picture to talk to you about it. Understand that this is our good elder, Dr. York, depicting himself as Jesus. Now, I want to say to you that I do not believe that Jesus is a literal character, a historical figure. But listen to what our brother Prince York says. This is not the real image. That means that he also believes that Jesus must be a real person. What does that mean? The real image. What is a real image of a mythological character? Family, we have to be really careful with this. By the way, he talks about how important the intonation of words are, but then he tells you that he continues to use the word Egypt because he's teaching. But then he tells you that you need to know the language and speak it properly in order for it to do things. But then he continually in your face says Egypt, boldly. You got to call him on this, family. I will not give my legacy away to the Tomhu. You shouldn't either, and you need to call this young man on it so he can learn and be better. That's what you need to do. He says to you that distance doesn't matter with regard to the creation of civilizations. How could you make that? Who would ever make that argument? Distance doesn't matter. We know that Kemet was ruled by the same people in that period. Actually, we know that it wasn't ruled by the same people. Did you ever hear something about the Namur Palette? When he comes forward and he defeats people on the coast in northern Africa to unify and to create one kingdom? We know that it wasn't ruled by the same people during that time. So why is he even trying to make that argument? Because he hasn't studied enough history. Because he's discarding everything that he believes comes from the Tomhu. Well, then just read my book, because I'm not a Tomhu. Because I'm going to tell you that he needs to do more work on his historical sources to be able to stand here with me. I wasn't planning on doing this to this dear brother. I wanted us to have a dialogue. He asked, you saw it on camera. He asked to do this. I just prepared 3 slides and the brother can't handle it. You got to understand that this is the way that you come together and try to articulate ideas in front of people. And if you're not able to do it, then when you come against Brother Jabari, it's going to be light work. And that's just the reality. Ask him once again about what he says about pre-dynastic people. I don't have to actually know his Nuwuapian language. I just wanted to tell you, how was it created? What is its purpose? If he said to me it's an ancient language, who in the world would say Nuwuapic is an ancient language? If that's what you're saying, that doesn't make sense. Even if you're trying to draw from ancient sources to create a language, once you're doing that, it's a new language. All languages are based on the languages that come before them. Just like English has some corollaries from ancient languages. That doesn't mean English is an ancient language. Who would make that argument? Not even the Tomhu would make that argument. And they want to try to put themselves on top of the world. Family, please ask this brother to learn the history of the region and to take a good science class. Because if he does that, he'll be able to address this easier. He won't just discard all of genetic studies. He won't just discard all of the things that he says come from the Talmud. You have to understand that any scholar is supposed to put forward the data by which they make their arguments. You could disagree with the argument, but you have to be able to look at their data. Family, stop giving that to the Talmud. Stop it. Data is data. You could disagree with the data. You can't just discard the whole book just because a Talmud did it. By the way, this is just a translation. Merriam-Webster didn't write this book. The Talmud was just describing what you did when you were on the throne, family. Learn as much as you can. And also understand that until we are able to muster the resources to get as many of our scholars to have archaeology degrees, as many of our scholars to have degrees in linguistics, not just hear a few languages and call themselves a linguist, but to actually study linguistics. I'm sitting here with someone who has a linguistics degree, one of 2 black linguistics majors at one of the toughest institutions in the world. To call myself a linguist would be to disrespect her study. That's the reason why I didn't call myself a linguist. But in terms of language, this young man can't deal with me. He can't. You just saw him fumble several times. It's embarrassing. Have him prepare. Now, understand his trajectory is very high. A 45-year-old Prince York would probably do some good work on a 45-year-old Jabari Osaze. I respect him enough to say that. But I'm telling you that in order for him to get there, there's some information he needs. Please don't allow him to be so ensconced in his tradition that he's going to discard all the things he needs to become a better scholar and to become a better leader to our people. Peace.
Peace. You want to get back, man?
Of course.
You know he want to get back.
Of course.
You know he want to get back.
I'm a York.
You know he want to get back.
I'm a York.
By the way, I didn't even read this. I was going to read some stuff. I didn't even do it.
All right, back to the
Come on, let's just close out, brother.
back to the actual facts.
You're hungry,
we
man.
got
You're a vegan. You didn't eat
As
all
long
day.
as I talk, he's gonna keep talking.
Of course, because as long as bullshit walks, I gotta keep sweeping it. So you know what I mean? That's what it is. So once again, to revisit the conversation once again, Dr. Malachi Z. York again, and it wasn't my body posture, it was only because the brother was standing here and I didn't want to stand on top of him, plus the cameras are both faced this way. But Dr. Malachi, if you can put it back on the screen if you'd like, Dr. Malachi Z. York was not attempting to give forth an image of a Christ-like image. With Dr. Malachi, yeah, go ahead. With Dr. Malachi, make sure you get the camera on it too. With Dr. Malachi Z. York in this image, and this is not even the image of Jesus in our books. And I'm not saying that, and no, Nuwuapians do not adhere to Jesus being a person in reality, a literal person. No, we do not hold to that whatsoever. Right? Dr. Malachi Z. York in this image is depicting, and if you actually read the books where this image came out of, he said, he was talking about where Jesus stated, when I see you, I see God. Ye are gods. And Baba, and my father, we call him Baba, means father. My father was saying, yo, you guys are the Messiah. And he depicted himself and everybody in his books are images of people within our community, even to this day. There's images of my mother, right, of my very own mother, drawing of my mother as Fatima in ancient time. Not meaning that's the real image of Fatima, just so the people in the community would begin to, and this is in the, and plus these images are very old, but this is in the time period where our people were still trying to understand whether religious people in the books were black or white. Now we know obviously today that we are past those schools of thought. Obviously we're on side of the TV, we're getting unlimited information, but the goal was to show and prove that we are gods. That was the point. And Dr. Malachi Z. York, being a God himself, because we can't deem everybody else gods and then leave the teacher out, being a God himself, he said, I'm going to show and prove and correct that. Look at his hand gesture. His hand gesture is nothing Christ-like. Actually, this hand gesture is seen in all Dr. Malachi Z. York's posters. And he has his own meanings behind it in which he created and instituted himself. As far as the holding of the lamb, if you study biblical texts, which Dr. Malachi Z. York is a master of, the holding of the lamb has always been a representation of a messenger. Now all of a sudden the picture
I'm
went
going to
on.
show you the image. You want me to leave it up? I will.
Leave it up until I finish.
Okay.
I don't know what you was about to show me, but I want you to leave it up till I finish.
Okay.
The holding of the lamb has always been a depiction of the coming of the messenger, and the lamb in biblical text has been termed as meek, to admit that one is meek or humble. Even my father has went back on his own studies and said, I do not want my people to depict themselves as lambs. He said, never depict yourself as that, because the lamb is utilized in biblical text as sacrifice, and we as black people have been sacrificed too much. So please don't let Brother Jabari's fast words, and he's a great speaker too. He knows at just what point, and I might even take speech lessons from him. He knows just what points to get loud and just what points to get low, how to smile when I'm watching his mannerism. It's great. It reminds me of my father when my father sat down with Farrakhan. My father said himself. He said Farrakhan's a much greater speaker, but he doesn't have more knowledge than me. One more time, if you go to the, can you mind going to the slide of the map of the the map of Nakada and Napata? There we go. Now, if you see right here, this right here is where modern day Napata is, and this is where modern day Nakada or Nakada is, right? This entire region in pre-dynastic and proto-dynastic, I ain't talking about Norma. Norma is the first of the dynastic period. I'm talking about pre-dynastic periods. This entire region was the same. And I'll give him this. I'll give him all the air and oxygen to breathe on this one. I'll settle and put my hand down on the argument of whether the Sudanese pyramids are older or younger, because that debate is still going on amongst some of the most prominent scholars. The entire Sudanese government, I don't know if you know this is fact, but earlier this year in March, the Sudanese government had all of their archaeologists doing work on the pyramids to get an exact date to prove. So that's a debate that we can argue about when more and more facts can be compiled. As of right now, being the fact that most relevant sources are still in the debate process themselves, we'll get to that. And I'll give Brother Jabari the benefit of the doubt, right? That means I'll spare the fool, the one who does not know. To acknowledge you do not know is what? To ignore the facts. Ignorance. Now, the distance between a city has almost absolutely no correlation, because I did not say that Nakada was the capital, nor did I say Napata was the capital. So finding room to try to debunk that is almost irrelevant. The Nubian and the Egypt, I don't understand how anybody could disagree that Nubian and Egypt was unified. That's where my confusion is at. The brother is absolutely correct. This is one thing that the brother said. Make sure you get this, what I agree upon. The brother is absolutely correct. The brother Jabari, when he stated that Prince York has a lot of studying to do. Remember, Brother Jabari asked to speak with me, so obviously I must be qualified to speak with him, and we've seen, and let's please not talk ego boasting about debates, because we done seen young Marcus tear up grown men. We done seen, and he was 17, we done seen young Pharaoh rip up niggas in their 50s. So I mean, it is what it is. You got to give credit where credit due. You done seen the brother take W's on elders who ain't, because elders are what? They're stuck in their ways. Do I honor my elders? Of course. Do I respect my elders? Of course. I still to this day can pay homage to sheikhs, to imams, to pastors, and still sit down with them and take their wisdom. But does that mean just because you are, 20 years older than me, you're always right? It does not. The exact amount of time that he's been studying is barely over my actual age, and I've been studying my entire life, being the fact that I was born Nuwuapian. And Sinetta even had to remind Brother Jabari of this off camera. Remember, Jabari, he was born Sinetta, you said that, right?
Yes, I did.
Remember, he was born. So the studies I've been studying. Now, Brother Jabari is attempting to debunk. Go to the next slide, please. Brother Jabari,
Which one?
The only one we didn't show. Not that one, that one.
Okay.
The only thing, one, I don't uphold to an Adam and Eve story whatsoever. What we as Nuwuapians uphold to is we as Nuwuapians more so deal with a constant evolutionary process of our people. We say that Africans have always existed on this planet, if you want to say in primitive form or not. That's not my purpose of the debate. So I'm really not going to even be interested in Brother Jabari's response. My main thing that I want Brother Jabari to respond on is I want him to constantly revert back to Napata and Nakada. Also the Nuwuapic language, because he said Nuwuapic, no, bruh. Once again, you do not speak any language. I said straight to Jabari, face to face. I spoke to him in fluent Amharic. I spoke to him in, I gave many of terms, and I had to baby the terms down. Sinetta, you heard me. I had to baby the terms down. That's when we was upstairs, not down here. You heard me. I said, I said, let's do a translation. Did I not say that? I said, I'm going to say certain things and tell me if you know what I'm saying. He was not able to say anything I was saying. But then when he asked me what certain words was, every word that he asked me matched the Medu Neter. I'm not saying Nuwuapian and the Medu Neter is the same language. No, I'm saying that the indigenous people in the surrounding areas had their own languages, and their languages were dialects of the real Medu Neter. And the Caucasian, and I'm not doing it out of racial hate, I'm doing it out of fact, has dictated to the world the knowledge of what he wants us to know. And thus, him coming from the school of studying that madness, and me coming from the school of saying, I will, and nor did I debunk the book. I never said debunk a book. I said I study both. Inside another word attest to that. I said we say the Caucasian does not have the facts, that we will study the facts on our own and then return and sift through and see what the Caucasian says as fact or fiction. Did I not say that, Sinetta?
Careful, come on, don't destroy that.
Yes, you did.
That's what I said. I said we would not use the Caucasian as the point of reference to prove Africans right. We would use the Africans as a point of reference to prove Caucasians right or wrong. I strongly disagree with Caucasians being of any African descent, but I'm not gonna keep going back and forth on that, because that to me, like I said, we got to put together a video. To the cocky and the ego thing about the debate, I'm not gonna sit here and even allow y'all to entertain that conversation. We know Dr. Malachi, you created the debate platform, and as the brother has said, some of his first foundations in the science has come from my father as well. So, and even his teacher Baba Haru, even his.
I don't understand what you said.
Even his teacher, Baba Haru, has even just on the phone gave so much excitement, and Sinetta will agree, so much excitement and so much applause to both my father and his brother, who contributed muchly to the Kemetic community. That's exactly what he said. He even talked about how he felt honored at the fact that my father would ask Baba Haru to design a piece for him. And Baba Haru even talked about how he was invited personally to Tamaray, our land, where we actually rebuilt Egypt instead of just going to visit the cemetery. And he was actually invited and was able to come back. So
Close out. My phone getting ready to die.
we can close out together. Or you wanted to rebut?
How you gonna say that and not want me to say anything back?
Oh, go ahead.
You can't say that stuff and not. You can't let me not say this stuff.
I gotta be in the
Well, first of all, you should understand. Well, Brother Sonetta, when you called me today, did I say peace, brother?
Of course you said peace, brother.
And Brother Sonetta, did I ask you when Prince York was coming over? Did I ask him when you were coming over? Did I not ask you when he was coming over, Brother Sonetta?
Yes, sir, you did.
And in fact, Prince York, did I ask you if you wanted something to drink when you came in?
You did.
By the way, what am I doing here, family? Prince York does something really cool. I like it, but I want to diffuse it. He asks things that are not in debate, and he asks people to confirm whether it happened or not. That doesn't help his argument. He is asking us to agree to things that are immaterial. He is asking us to agree to things that have nothing to do with the discussion. So I think that's if he was with a less seasoned debater, maybe I'd get shook by that. But I've seen it before, so that doesn't faze me at all. Getting Sonetta to agree with something that no one is disagreeing. No, you can't yet. I gotta go further here really quickly because we have very little time, right? Prince York has actually said to us that the Sudanese government is trying to look at data to prove that the Merkuti in Sudan are older. I want him to pull forth some documents that say that that's what they're doing. Because I have spoken to many people who are working with the Sudanese government on their Merkuti, and I have never heard them say that. Let us be clear. I am quite sure that the Sudanese government is not arguing that the Merkuti are older than Kemet. They don't need to. See, the reason he doesn't know history enough to actually give the best sources. Let me help him here.
Help me.
Why didn't he ask me about the Kustal site? I'm going to actually help him with his debate. Because the Kustal site, this is because I actually like this brother. It's not, we don't hate each other. But the Kustal site is earlier than dynastic Kemet. That's what you should ask me about. And if you want to know more about the Kustal site, go see the Kustal incense burner in Chicago. It shows you all of the iconography of Kemet in Nubia. Why would you be a fool?
He thinks I'm a fool.
Why would you be a fool?
He would even put together in his mind the fact that he even put together the fact that I'm not equipped with the, like, that's what I'm saying. Instead of actually attacking my initial arguments about the landmass, because like even with the word that he says meruneta is mirkuti. If you go to the Nuwuapian word for pyramid, but once again I use the English term for those who don't understand. I like to help if the people who already know will get right into the books. As far as me, I'm an introduction. I'm not the master teacher. So I help the people who don't know. I tell them the words that they need to know, so therefore they can make the self-connection. Everybody's not, and that's your style of teaching. And you have to really stop insulting my style and just be comfortable with us being who we are. Now, the mirkuti in the Nuwuapian language,
The question wasn't mirkuti.
But hold on, I'm gonna put that in there. But
why do you always do that?
But in the Nuwuapian language, mir is actually the exact same. Mir is actually the exact same word for pyramid. So the confusion with brother. I got you. I was just asking my question.
Answer the question.
Mir is the exact same word in the Nuwuapian language. So once again, he has not studied the Nuwuapian. I actually encourage him, and I said I'd give him the books with no charge to study the Nuwuapian language, and then when you bring opposing argument, then you'll shake me, because he talks about him being a well-experienced debater. I've been doing this since I came out the womb. This is not new to me. Nuwuapians have been ciphering languages forever, over 54 years. He's an elder in age. He's not an elder in wisdom.
Okay.
Please note that. And his teacher even upholds to much respect to my own.
Please don't do that.
I'm closing out. It's Prince
How is he
York.
closing when I'm supposed to be
He got to
closing?
close out. He got to close
He
out.
can close out. It's Prince York.
This
Peace
is
to
really
everybody.
immature.
Prince York is out. And remember, Prince York has always been undefeated in debate, and no scholar anywhere will ever beat Prince York in debate. And I like how the brother's holding the mic for me to show me so much respect.
Because really what you're doing. I gave him the mic. I'm not going to shake your hand yet because I want you to stay to listen to this.
You have to, I'm leaving.
I gave him the mic simply because, and I want to give you some things before you leave. I gave him the mic because he was supposed to respond to me as earlier than those in Kemet. Then he says that he's taking issue with the depiction of Dr. York as Jesus the Christ here. Now let's be clear. I don't think this is the worst thing that Dr. York could have done. I'm saying that we have to be cautious about these images. That's what I said to you, family. That's what I said. If he doesn't believe that Dr. York was doing that, then he needs to actually show me all of the images of Jesus the Christ in different books that don't show him. Let me finish. Now, he also had the nerve to say that. He also had the nerve to. What are you looking for?
Laptop.
It's here. He also had the nerve to say, "I'm not gonna hold this stuff hostage. I'm not. Wait, that's disrespectful. You need to wait because now you're distracting and that's not cool. So you also need to know that he says that he spoke languages to me and I couldn't speak to him. That brother was not speaking the Medonetter. Right. I do not speak the Amharic, but it didn't sound like Amharic. I've been to Ethiopia. I know what it sounds like. I don't know what he was speaking. And that's what I told him. I said, brother, I don't know what you're speaking. Mm-hmm. If you show me a few words in Nuwuapu that are the same as the Medonetter, that doesn't say that an entire language is the same. I told you that the word for shaft of light in English is ray. And that comes from Re, the sun deity from Kemet. Because I can show you that, does that mean that English is the Medonetter? That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Don't let him flim-flam you, family. Because that's not even a good logical argument. Don't let him get away with that. By the way, he also said that Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Sepata, one of my greatest teachers and my spiritual father, as you heard me call him, gave lots of respect and love to his family and his uncle. And that is true. Baba Heru does always give love and respect to his family. And you know what? Here's the deal. I would like to also give love and respect to his family. You have heard me say that I look at Dr. York and what he was able to do, and I say, I wish that I am able to do some of the things that he's done. I admire much of what Dr. York has done. I disagree with many other things, but I admire things that he was able to do that I am not able to do. If you were a fly on the wall in my home, me speaking to my queen, the last few days, you would hear me say, I want to know how Dr. York was able to build that community. How did he finance it? What did he do? How did he do it? Now, I heard some things that I don't think are great, but the reality is I could critique him all day long. I haven't built nary a thing.
Brother.
So I respect what he did, but I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this. He wants to talk about Baba Heru, but he didn't tell you why we called Baba Heru. We called Baba Heru here because he stood here and said Baba Heru was a Nuwuapian. Notice he didn't mention it to you on camera. And I said, wait a minute. You cannot speak to someone who I have known for 2 decades, who has been as important and integral in my life for that long, and misspeak and say something about him that is not true. And so I called him, and Baba Heru said, no, I've never said I was a Nuwuapian. I was never a Nuwuapian. What? By the way, Baba Heru is the person in the West that has been following the Kemetic tradition longer than virtually anyone else. The only person that you can argue has been doing this as long is Raul Nefer Amen at the Saraset Society. And there's a good argument that Baba was doing it longer. But there's also an argument that Raul Nefer Amen at the Saraset Society was doing it at the same time. Those are the only 2, family. Prince York would like to show you Dr. York in his Christian phase, in his Islamic phase, and then say it was all the same thing. It was all a plan to get to Kemet. What? Do you believe that, family? I won't begrudge him for going through stages. I've gone through stages myself. But let's not pretend that the stages were something than they were. When you make those arguments, you're going to get in trouble. So family, I want you to know that I asked Prince York to come here, not because I wanted to beat him up, not even because I wanted to debate him, because I wanted to have a discussion with him. And he turned this into something else. Then he got upset, and then he broke out. Why did he do that? This young man needs to do a little more work to be ready. Family, if you love him, you need to assist him in doing the work for him to be ready. I already said to you, I don't know if the 45-year-old Jabari can spar with the 45-year-old Prince York. I said that to you, family. If that wasn't giving respect to him and his trajectory, then I don't know what is. So I want you to listen carefully and to understand carefully. I want you to really take this stuff seriously, not because we're trying to separate each other. That's not what I asked Prince York to come here for. I asked him because we have to get to understand and to agree on some fundamental things in order for us to move together in a military formation. In order for us to be as powerful as we can be, we have to be unified. And so I asked him some questions about his tradition. He was uncomfortable with that. Family, please don't think I was disrespecting this young brother. Because I have tried really hard to not only respect him, but to also acknowledge that he is a dynamo at where he is. If I didn't think so, I would not have asked him to come here. So as we conclude, understand that Prince York has asked me to debate in March. If I am available, if I'm in the country. By the way, my birthday's in March. If the debate was on my birthday, would I go? You better believe I would. You better believe my queen is saying, no, you won't. Yes, I would. Because I am not, you can't ask me to debate and I'm going to run with my tail between my legs. He can't do that. Not because I want to beat up a young man, but because if you call me out like that and I'm bringing you the information of our ancestors and you want to debate it, I'm standing on our ancestors all day long. You cannot misrepresent their information and not think that Brother Jabari is coming for you. Peace.